Chapter 906. This chapter was updated by Baby 666. There was no one who didn't desire dragons. Just like how Liszt was still attracted by the orichalcum despite having so many dragons. He couldn't help but start his plan. When Lee William heard that the Tulip family also had a chance to ride a dragon, his heartbeat sped up. However, he quickly felt relieved. The kingdom had to carry out the Dragon Knight plan. As long as the Tulip family had a talented child, it was natural for them to be selected. Although the Bull Marquis was a bad choice, they were still related by blood. Furthermore, as long as the soul imprint belonged to the Flame family, outsiders would just be employees no matter how they rode the dragon. They couldn't possibly ride the dragon away. Lee William's thoughts had changed a lot recently. He no longer paid attention to the Tulip family. After all, the Flame family only had Liszt. As long as Liszt was in power, his protection and favor for the Tulip family would never end. Perhaps one day, the Tulip family would become a true dragon-rearing family. Furthermore, there was one important point. Whether it was the Tulip family or the Flame family, they were both his descendants. Liszt was his son. To Lee William, life was already perfect. Now he just hoped that his eldest son, Levis, could also enjoy wealth. His youngest son, Lytton, could also bask in some glory. Your brother's talent is limited. The future of the Tulip family will be in Richard's hands sooner or later. I hope Richard can raise them up. As his uncle, you have to guide him. Don't worry. As long as Richard has talent, I won't let it go to waste. Liszt was quite fond of this cute nephew of his. Due to his transmigration, he didn't have much affection for his family. However, he had watched Richard grow up at 2 years old. His mental age wasn't that young anymore. Although he had never been a parent, his feelings for children had gradually changed. Young people always find children annoying, but older people usually like children very much. Liszt, who looked down on the world, was no exception. 2 contacts. Duke Piero quickly gave André and the orichalcum dragons information after the benefits were clear. This location is adjacent to the Snowwind Mountain Principality, a vassal state of the Kingdom of Yellowstone. This area is the undeveloped southern region of the wasteland of the Eagle Kingdom. The terrain here is complex and undulating. There are many cliff-like mountain ranges. The Copper Mountain dragons live here. It seems that the Eagle royal family calls this place the Hungduan Mountains. Hungduan Mount? Liszt raised his eyebrows as he recalled that he was no stranger to this place. He had read about it in a book collected by the Bull Marquis. The book was written by a sorcerer of the Silver Moon gathering named Sven Truth and given to Alonso Cyclamen as a gift. It had no title, but on the cover was a dragon with its head and tail attached. It was unknown how it had ended up on Marquis Bull's desk, but Liszt had coincidentally taken it away during the attack on Juniper Castle. He called the book the Dragon Raising Handbook, which recorded all the research the Silver Moon Assembly had done on dragons. The Silver Moon Assembly was a magic organization of the Eagle Kingdom. The reason why Sven had given Alonso the book was probably because he wanted to invest in Alonso before he became a Dragon Knight. As a candidate for the Dragon Knight project, Alonso was obviously a person worthy of investment in the early days, and he had indeed succeeded in riding a dragon. The Dragon Raising Handbook mentioned that Sven had studied the Earth Dragon in the Hungduan Mountains. Thinking of this, Liszt's eyes flashed slightly. He said calmly, "Isn't there an Earth Dragon in the Hungduan Mountains?" Earth Dragon? Duke Piero was stunned for a moment, but he did not panic. He was just very surprised. "Your Highness, you know something about the Hungduan Mountains?" "Why? I don't know if there are Earth Dragons in the Hungduan Mountains, but when I sent the rats to investigate, they did find out that there was once an Earth Dragon in the Hungduan Mountains. Then, the Hungduan Mountains became the residence of the Copper Mountain Dragon, and it has been living there for nearly 3 years. Piero wanted to ask why Liszt knew about the Hungduan Mountains, but it was obvious that Liszt had no intention of explaining. He just nodded. "Go on. One of my rats mixed with André as a servant." In order to ride a dragon, André did a lot of research with the help of the Eagle Kingdom. The key to riding in Copper Mountain Dragon is the quality of the knight. It needs to be unyielding, indomitable, fearless, and know how to sacrifice oneself. Only in this way can the Copper Mountain Dragon be moved. Every time Duke Piero mentioned the qualities of the Copper Mountain Dragon, List's face would turn a little darker. Although he had these qualities, they were not perfect. Obviously, there's almost no hope of riding a Copper Mountain Dragon using conventional methods. Even if he knew this would be the result, he still felt bad. So how far did Andre go? He did not believe that there was really someone else with such high qualities other than himself. Duke Piero laughed sarcastically. Andre may be the descendant of a traitor, but he is really an excellent knight. In order to prepare a kind of bird egg that the Copper Mountain Dragon likes to eat, he personally climbed a cliff and went into a cave to get the egg while being attacked by a group of World of Warcraft birds. His skin was pecked to pieces. There were many similar actions. As expected, he was willing to sacrifice himself for the Orichalcum dragons. The location of the Copper Mountain Dragon was confirmed. List then started to prepare the strategy, leaving the negotiation team to Lee William. The Smoke mission was to force all three kingdoms to acknowledge the Fire Kingdom. The emissaries from Steel Ridge and Furnace Castle had not arrived yet, so there was no need to hurry with the negotiation team. Duke Piero could not let him go now, in case he had ulterior motives. The so-called Copper Mountain Dragon was just a cover to trap List. The Copper Mountain Dragon is very strong. I need help. The Gray Iron Dragon stayed on Black Horse Island for the time being to deter the negotiation team and Duke Piero, and also to hide his whereabouts. He decided to take the Light Emerald Dragon Ethan and let Ethan set off from Flame Island towards the legendary continent. Ethan's speed was not fast enough, and following the Invisible Dragon would slow the team down. He himself would take the Little Fire Dragon Leo, the Invisible Dragon Bard, and the Magic Shooter 8 Chi and follow closely behind. The whole journey is expected to take a week to get the Copper Mountain Dragon. By the way, I can contact Yevich. I don't know how his investigation in Snowwind Mountain Principality is going. When Ethan started to set off, List quickly dealt with the official business of the territory, then filled up with supplies, appeared briefly on Black Horse Island, and quietly left. The Fire Islands were about 1,700 kilometers away from the legendary continent, but their geographical location was much better than that of the Sapphire Islands. In the middle of the straight sailing journey, there were other islands as supply points and outposts. After flying for 500 kilometers, List and his party landed in a large archipelago, the unnamed Third Archipelago. There were many islands, but they were fragmented. None of them was larger than Black Horse Island, and the development potential was very low. However, it was a good supply point. In the future, the Fire Kingdom might be able to build several port cities here. Of course, if the magic transmission array connected directly to the legendary continent was opened, it didn't matter whether the island was supplied or not. After a short stop, they flew another 500 kilometers and saw a large island. The area of the island should not be smaller than Coral Island from a high altitude, and it was also a place suitable for development as a supply island. After flying another 700 kilometers, they would reach the coastline of the legendary continent. There was no human habitation here, or rather, there was no human habitation within 100 kilometers. Hundreds of kilometers deep was the small village at the edge of Snowwind Mountain Principality, the hunter's village that Yevich had encountered before. List took out a map. List and Achi studied it for a moment. Where we are is the border between the Eagle Kingdom and the Yellowstone Kingdom. To the west is Snowwind Mountain Principality, and to the northwest is the direction of the Hungduan Mountains. But we first have to determine the location of the Rhine River. The Hungduan Mountains is the birthplace of the Rhine River, so we won't get lost along the river. While talking, a dragon roared. The Light Emerald Dragon Ethan had followed the connection with List's mind and came to gather. It arrived at the legendary continent a day ahead of time and rested in the nearby forest. Achi, you ride Bart, I'll ride Ethan. Let's find the mouth of the Rhine River first. Yes. Roar. Woo. 2 people and 3 dragons continued the journey of finding and riding the dragon. At this very moment, on the top of a cliff thousands of kilometers away, a giant golden dragon that was in deep sleep suddenly woke up from its snoring. An indescribable feeling made its heart palpitate. But as it woke up, the feeling quickly disappeared. It looked at the bottom of the cliff doubtfully. A knight was flying and flashing beside a gray-white tent. Chapter 907. Blue sky, white clouds, green mountains, and clear waters. Flying upstream along the Rhine River, Liszt, who was riding on the back of the emerald dragon Ethan, closed his eyes and used Ethan's eyes to see the road. The magic eye secret technique did not work well with Ethan, or rather, the effect was not good. It was only slightly clearer than when Liszt used it alone. Needless to say, the aura reduction did not reduce the Dragon Knight's energy consumption, and the spiral rotation did not have much effect. It had to be said that other than producing emeralds, Ethan was very mediocre in other aspects. This emerald dragon's combat power was probably the lowest among all the dragons. Little fire dragon Leo was only 3 years old this year, but with the supreme magic supply from the endless volcanoes and the help of Liszt potions, his growth was rapid, and his ability to fight head-on had already surpassed Ethan. The reason why he brought Ethan here was to deepen the soul imprint so that Ethan could train with Emily as soon as possible. Roar! In Liszt's mind, the shadow of the knight on Ethan's back became clearer. Every time Liszt entered Ethan's mind, he deepened the shadow's imprint. This strange training method was different from any other system, and it was exclusive to dragons and the first generation of Dragon Knight. But to Liszt, no matter how many dragons he had, he was still the first generation of Dragon Knight. To this day, my personal strength has increased very little, and I'm completely relying on supporting dragons to fight. What would the cultivation system above Dragon Knights be? Just what should I do to become stronger? As Ethan's soul imprint became clearer, he gradually felt that his strength had reached a bottleneck. This bottleneck was common to all Dragon Knight in the northeast corner of the legendary continent. When the Dragon Warrior energy was cultivated to the peak, the dragon's strength would also reach the peak. At this time, both man and dragon fell into a shackle that they could not break free from. It was called a perfect Dragon Knight. Liszt rode on 4 dragons, but he still could not break free from this shackle. He was a fire-attributed knight, and his coordination with Leo was the most perfect and flawless. His cooperation with Ethan, Bard, and Aun would be a little sluggish, but fortunately, the dragon magic belonged to the supreme magic level, and there was no hindrance in cooperating with any dragon combat energy. Even a fire attribute knight riding a water dragon could train and fight together. Although a knight can ride a dragon at will, I have a faint feeling that if I want to break through to the level of a dragon knight, not only do I need to train my soul, I also need to have a closer connection between the dragon and the knight. Perhaps Leo is the best partner for me to break through. Roar! Ethan sensed Liszt's inattention and immediately roared in dissatisfaction. Liszt smiled and comforted her. I know you don't like Leo, and you don't like me either. But soon, I will choose a more suitable knight for you. Ethan, she's an extremely talented female knight. She's a sky knight at the age of 14. She's an unprecedented existence. Roar! Ethan signaled for Liszt to bring her over quickly. Although the soul brand of the first-generation Dragon Knight was erased in the soul battle, and Ethan's body and mind belonged to Liszt, he didn't lose his memory, and he still had a grudge against Liszt. Plus, Liszt didn't have the qualities that he recognized, so it was still a little uncomfortable. Even though the spiritual connection and the power of the soul brand made it impossible for him to escape the intimate connection with Liszt until he died of old age. But this didn't stop Ethan from wanting to change to another knight. The gray-mouthed Iron Dragon, Aun, also had the same idea. That Iron Dragon had a lot of complaints against Liszt, who asked him to be ridden by Liszt when he was awake. This nightmarish memory would probably be engraved in his dragon life, and he would never forget it. It's better to raise him up. Leo is an evil dragon. Although he will have evil thoughts and return to his wild nature from time to time, his feelings for me are absolutely great, he muttered to himself with emotion. Ethan let out another disdainful roar. Roar! On the other side, the invisible dragon bard was quite happy. He was carrying a chi on his back. Although the Dragon Fong platform wouldn't open to a chi, and spellcasters couldn't establish a power connection with dragons, he liked a chi very much. However, it liked Qi very much, and this affection was based on Qi's understanding and knowledge of space. He deeply knew that compared to List, Qi was the one who could guide him on how to grow. Unfortunately, she wasn't Knight. Wuxia. Bard turned his head and glanced at Qi, who was holding a scepter and studying it on his back. Qi looked up at Bard and responded with a perfunctory smile. Bard was instantly happy, but he didn't know that Qi didn't really like him. The reason was simple. Bard liked to chew the smoke grass too much. Although a dragon's digestive ability was strong, and even their saliva had a strong digestive ability, there wouldn't be any residual temperature. But when they chewed, the strange stench would spread everywhere. Every time this happened, Qi would take out 3 masks designed by List and cover her nose tightly. It was the same now. Bard didn't know where to hide the smoke grass that List had prepared for him. Whenever he was happy, he would silently take out a handful of smoke grass and grind it between his teeth. The stench immediately drifted with the wind. Big Brother must have ridden Ethan because he doesn't like the smell of the smoke grass, Qi thought. She quickly took out 3 masks and put them on. Even with the masks, the stench still lingered in her nose. She could only endure it in silence and then focus her attention on the scepter of time in her hand. Along the way, she had been studying the time gemstone on top of the scepter of time. The ancient book of knowledge's appraisal of the scepter of time was Twilight Dragon Gemstone, Golden Apple Wood, Time Reflection. But even after studying for a long time, she still couldn't figure out how to activate the time gemstone, what effect the golden apple wood had, and the meaning of time reflection. She looked at her own figure on every side of the time gemstone. There was the face of a little siren when she was young, and there was the face of an old siren. It was as if all the changes in her life were engraved in the time gemstone. Unlike the aging of humans, sirens didn't change much even when they were old. It looked like they only had a little more crow's feet at the corner of their eyes. Am I going to look like this when I'm old? Qi's body was already an adult, but her mentality was still that of a siren girl. She was ignorant about many things related to adulthood. Time. Qi wants to grow old with Big Brother. But Big Brother wants to contract a fairy dragon. Then what about Qi? She was in a trance, and her hands unconsciously circulated magic. At this moment, the magic that should have decayed upon contact with the time gemstone was unexpectedly not erased by the power of time. Instead, it slowly seeped into the time gemstone. Then, the invisible dragon Bard in Qi's eyes suddenly became a little bigger, as if his wingspan had suddenly increased from 15 meters to 20 meters when he was an adult. And on the dragon Fong platform on its back, a knight wearing armor cast by flames slowly turned his head. The figure seemed to be illusory, but also seemed real. That face was also familiar, yet strange to Qi. It was clearly List's face, but his beard was unshaven, as if he was middle-aged. Only his eyes were still as clear as ever. When the knight saw Qi, his eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of surprise, and then he smiled full of the temperament of a mature man and said a sentence. His voice was faintly discernible, as if it was right next to her ear, but also seemed to be at the edge of the sky. Qi, time cannot be stopped. I will conquer the land of exile. Big Brother. Qi looked at the scene in front of her in surprise. However, before she could say anything, the strange, illusory, and real scene in front of her suddenly dissipated. The invisible dragon still had a wingspan of 15 meters. There was no knight on the Dragon Fawn platform, and the stench of the smoke grass was still slowly drilling in her nostrils. Chapter 908. Big Brother, come here. After trying to trigger the scepter of time again, to no avail, Qi decisively called for List. He jumped off Ethan's back and quickly caught him, then sat on the Dragon Tooth platform. What's wrong? Just now, Qi accidentally triggered the scepter of time and saw a very strange scene. Bard is an adult, and Big Brother is also a middle-aged man, wearing a suit of armor condensed from flames, and said something to Qi. Qi imitated the voice in the scene. Qi, time cannot be stopped. I will conquer the land of exile. Time cannot be stopped. I will conquer the land of exile. List rubbed his chin. Conquer the land of exile. This domineering tone suits me, but what does time cannot be stopped mean? Achi, describe the scene you saw in detail. Achi described the scene she saw in detail, including the appearance of the adult invisible dragon, List's middle-aged appearance, the surprised look in his eyes, the tone of his voice, and the armor on his body. List then carefully pondered. The armor condensed from flames reminded him of Leo. It was probably a new Chi's secret technique he had developed and the effect of using it together with Leo. It could also be some kind of divine artifact-level magical equipment. Time cannot be stopped. Achi, how did you see this scene? I don't know. Achi was just thinking about what Big Brother would look like in the future, and then I saw it. If not for the Time Diamond's mana being severely depleted, Achi would have thought it was an illusion, but the scene was extremely clear. If that's the case, it's possible that the Time Diamond presented the scene of the future in front of you, right? You said that I have a stubble in the scene? Yes. List immediately heaved a sigh of relief. It seems that it's only a possibility in the future, and a very unlikely possibility. Achi, you should understand the reason. The first thing I do every morning is shave. As a great dragon knight, a noble king, personal image is very important. He did not like to keep a beard, and basically shaved it off before it grew out. Besides, your big brother, and the embodiment of the knight's glory. Even fate has to submit to me. How can a mere time gemstone see the future? List didn't feel that the Time Diamond's image was the future. That was because the future had countless possibilities and wasn't fixed. Even the smoke dragon that toyed with fate would experience death, and the remnant power of fate would be attached to his body. The dusk dragon that represented time hadn't been born for many years, which meant that it had also died. If such a mystical dragon couldn't even control its own future, how could it control the futures of others? But, Big Brother, time cannot be blocked. Does that mean that Achi will die before Big Brother? Sirens only have a lifespan of 400 or 500 years. If Big Brother forms a contract with the fairy dragon, he will be able to live forever. Perhaps the Time Gemstone will be able to see such a scene, Achi said with a girlish heart. Her eyes were slightly misty, as if she was thinking of something romantic. Two people who loved each other but couldn't be together, parting with each other in tears. List chuckled. If I can't enjoy life with Achi, what's the point of forming a contract with a fairy dragon? Achi, don't let your imagination run wild. He rubbed Achi's azure blue hair hard. How could he let go of Achi in this life? Not even for a moment. He concluded forcefully. The Time Diamond only provides a possibility. Perhaps it is based on what you think in your heart and produces a picture of the future. You think that separation and death are very romantic, so I give you a picture of separation and death. Yes. After List's enlightenment, Achi also felt that the future was full of variables, and it was impossible to have a fixed fate. List suddenly said, but conquering a great hegemony like the Land of Exile is very much in line with my appetite. If the Land of Exile really exists, I will conquer it sooner or later. There are too many magnificent and strange places in this world. It would be a pity if I don't visit them one by one in my lifetime. Achi also wants to see the Land of Exile. Don't worry, when the time comes, we will conquer the Land of Exile together. List took Achi's hand, pulled her into his arms, and then held the scepter of time. Come, teach me how to touch it. I want to see what the future looks like in my eyes. If Achi guessed correctly, the power of the Time Diamond needs to be combined with the wood of the golden apple. There is a legend that says that the function of the golden apple is to make people's wishes come true. Maybe Big Brother can use your heart to think about the future and activate the Time Diamond and see the picture of the future. I'll try. List began to imagine the future with all his strength. He had countless sketches of the future, but no matter how he imagined it, he could not activate the scepter of time. He tried to activate it with Achi again, and Achi tried many times, but it still did not work. Is there not enough magic? That's not right. Although a part of the magic of the Time Diamond has been consumed, there is still a lot of it. It shouldn't be unable to activate it. Otherwise, could it be that the ancient mage can only be used once? This should be a regular magic staff. List guessed. Perhaps there was one possibility. As a person who controls the power of fate, the time diamond can't reflect my future at all. The whole day, he did not even have time to cultivate with Ethan. He was busy activating the Scepter of Time, but the Scepter of Time did not respond at all. Instead, he was tormented by it until his head was spinning. Night. The team set up camp next to the Rhine River. He hugged the Scepter of Time to sleep and said to himself, "Imagine the future. Imagine the future." Just like that, he was about to fall asleep in a daze. Suddenly, his vision blurred, and the crystal lamp in the tent suddenly turned into an endless starry sky. A pure white shell floated in the starry sky. She was wearing a gorgeous magic cloak and seemed to be overflowing with magic power. She had a head of beautiful blue hair, and she held a gray long sword in her hand as she gazed at the endless starry sky. As if sensing something, the female, mage, suddenly turned her head. It was Qi's familiar and beautiful face, but she looked more mature, and a sweet smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She said in a voice that seemed real and illusory, "Big brother, you're here." List's brain was a little muddled. Something is wrong. If I saw a scene from a future, why would you talk to me? Big brother, the Scepter of Time has already reflected time. Qi and Big Brother are in different times and different spaces. We found a possibility among countless possibilities and had a short conversation. Other than being surprised, List did not know what to express for a moment. At this time, Qi had already turned around completely. The gorgeous magic cloak on her was made up of several colors, like a gorgeous dress. There were dense magic patterns on it, making her look like a goddess from the 9 heavens, noble and flawless. "Big brother, you look so young. You must ride more dragons. It's best if you ride all the dragons in the legendary continent and the Malfa continent." As Qi spoke, she suddenly looked at the starry sky behind her and frowned. It has awakened. This fellow is even more annoying than Tulumida. Qi must hide. Oh, I forgot to remind Big Brother that the fairy dragon is in the land of exile. The next moment, Qi waved her hand casually, and a magic door appeared beside her. She smiled sweetly at List, stepped into the magic door, and disappeared without a trace. List did not understand the situation. However, in the background of the endless starry sky, a pair of eyes suddenly opened. This pair of eyes was filled with a chilling gaze. It was indescribable and impossible to look directly at. It merely glanced at List. The next moment, the illusory scene collapsed, and the scene in front of him returned to the tent with crystal lamps. However, List could not extricate himself from the gaze of that pair of eyes for a long time. His whole body was cold, as if he was frozen by thousands of years of ice. He could not move, and even his breathing and thoughts had stopped. Crack! The sound of glass shattering was like a hammer knocking on List's head, freeing him from the stagnant state just now. He panted heavily, and his heart contracted violently. He could not catch his breath. After a while, he suddenly realized that the time gemstone at the top of the Scepter of Time in his hand had shattered into pieces, like an ordinary gemstone that had exhausted its magic power. And the scepter made of golden apple wood had also decayed into ordinary rotten wood. Chapter 909. This chapter is Celestial Dream Traversing. List did not rush to wake Qi up for reference. He pondered quietly by himself. The impact just now made him feel uncomfortable, and it took him a while to calm his emotions. He threw away the rotten wooden stick in his hand, and the pair of eyes appeared in his mind again. What a terrifying gaze. It's even more evil than Leo's. No, it's not evil. It should be. He could not find the right word to describe it. In the end, he reluctantly used heartless to describe it. If the heavens had feelings, they would also grow old. It was a kind of heartless that all things had their own order, and no one could escape from it. What creature's eye is this? Could it be the weave dragon? When tearing apart the weave and spying on the nodes, List had once seen the weave dragon. The weave dragon sleeping in an indescribable space was terrifying and ferocious, but the weave was emitted from its body. The prosperity of magic during the era of the Moon Empire was probably because of it. If it's the weave dragon and has awakened, Does it mean that magic will be revived at some point in the future? It seems that I paid attention to the wrong details. I should have paid attention to the impact of the mystic dragon's awakening. It seems to be chasing after a Qi. Before a Qi left, she said, "It's awake." This fellow is even more annoying than Philometor. It was clear that the mystic dragon was not a good dragon. Back then, a Qi had been chased by Philometor for thousands of miles before she met List. How dare you chase after a Qi? Even if you're the Weave Dragon, I'll ride you. List clenched his fists. This scene of the future did not give him too much pressure. Because when he met the future, a Qi, she explained that the scepter of time's ability to reflect time was to choose one out of countless possibilities and connect it. This was similar to the theory of parallel worlds. Although he did not really understand it, he was very clear that the so-called future was a possibility and did not mean that it was the real future. The power of time, represented by the Twilight Dragon, was more like a prophecy. If the future was fixed, then the power of the Twilight Dragon was a complete paradox. It could communicate with the future, affect reality, and affect reality would change the future. Just like how Liz saw a Qi in the future, and with a Qi's reminder, he rode a large number of dragons, which changed the future. The new future was obviously different from the future he had seen before. So, at this point in time, did List see the future? He picked up the broken gemstone on the ground. The broken gemstone had lost its color, and he could vaguely see the reflection of a human figure. So, only the present is real. Everything else about the future and the past is fake, or rather, nothingness, because the past is long past and cannot be touched or changed. The future has yet to arrive, and every change will affect countless branches. When he was living on Earth, List loved watching sci-fi movies, so he studied parallel universes, time travel, and other sci-fi topics. He had a good understanding of the time paradox. In particular, he had studied a movie called The Previous Destination. This movie was very interesting. To put it simply, the protagonist gave birth to himself, and then the protagonist who became an agent fought with the villain himself. Time was like an Ouroboros from beginning to end. It was an endless loop. Suddenly, he thought of another possibility. What if the existence of the Twilight Dragon is to create an Ouroboros cycle like The Previous Destination ? The future List that a Qi saw and the future a Qi that List saw might be part of the Ouroboros cycle. However, as soon as this horrifying speculation arose, he rejected it. The Twilight Dragon may be able to predict the future, but the Smoke Dragon can change fate. They are both holy dragons, but the Emerald Dragon can't trick the Invisible Dragon. How can the Twilight Dragon be stronger than the Smoke Dragon? Most importantly, this was only the future predicted by Time Diamond, but List had a cheat life with smoke possession. The future seen by the Scepter of Time is not the real future, but the information revealed may not necessarily be false. The Mr. Dragon will eventually awaken and will not always sleep. The Fairy Dragon is located in the Land of Exile, and if I want to live forever, I have to go to the Land of Exile, and a Qi will become very powerful. With a magic gate, even the Mr. Dragon can do nothing to her. So, he casually put away the Time Diamond and muttered to himself, I now have clues to the Smoke Dragon, the Emerald Dragon, the Dusky Dragon, and the Fairy Dragon, and I'm already riding the Invisible Dragon. The Holy Dragons are destined to be caught in one fell swoop by me. I even have a clue about the Mr. Dragon, if this counts as a clue. No matter what, whether this future was a prophecy or fate, List did not need to be nervous. In the two future scenes, he and a Qi were living quite well, without illness or disaster, and had become very powerful. What he needed to do now was to ride the dragon, and keep riding it until he rode all the holy dragons. So what if the Mr. Dragon was a villain boss? If it dared to do evil, he would ride it all the same. He just did not know if the Dragon Fawn platform would fit such a huge dragon. He had made up his mind. He walked to the tent next door and woke the lightly sleeping Qi, telling her in detail about the future scenes he had seen. The two chatted in the tent for half the night, but they did not manage to come up with too many clues. In any case, They came to the conclusion that they needed to ride more dragons. The next dragon will definitely be the orichalcum dragon. Late at night, List had another dream. It was still the same transparent river. A malevolent dragon whose details could not be clearly seen was fighting against another lustrous dragon whose details could not be clearly seen. He did not know where he was, but he could see that the fight was nearing its end and the fluorescent dragon was being slaughtered. Then, following a silent explosion, the fluorescent dragon chose to self-detonate. Its body turned into countless lustrous lights and fell into the pitch-black world. In that pitch-black world, there seemed to be countless plants growing, some of which even gave birth to sprite worms. The lustrous lights quickly merged with the plants and the sprite worms. The next moment, the sprite worms began to swell. Then a small hand tore open its skin and came out from inside the sprite worm. It spread its wings and flew cheerfully. Impressively, it evolved into a lesser sprite. Then, one after another, the lesser sprites flew up and played on the transparent river. However, they did not reflect their figures on the transparent river. Instead, following the convergence of countless lesser sprites, the indistinct silhouette of a dragon rose from the transparent river. The silhouette of this dragon was similar to that of the fluorescent dragon that had self-detonated. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the pitch-black world, and a grotesquely shaped dragon claw tore through the darkness, seemingly looking for something. But smoke slowly emerged above the transparent river, concealing the fluorescent dragon's silhouette. The grotesquely shaped claw paused for a moment, and then slowly escaped into the darkness. Chapter 9-10. He felt refreshed after a good night's sleep. List could not remember what he had dreamed last night, but his goal in life was to ride all the dragons in the legendary continent and another Malfa continent. The Malfa continent was revealed by a chi in the future, but List did not know where it was specifically. What he discussed with the chi last night, he thought that the Malfa continent might be the continent where the Sun's Child lived. In ancient times, the Moon Empire unified the legendary continent, and the Sun's Child unified the Malfa continent. Separated by the Devil's Sea, the two ancient civilizations used the sky ship to travel between the two continents. Of course, it was also possible to directly establish a teleportation formation to communicate with each other, but he did not know why the Sun's Child had also declined. List still remembered the note in the plastic aluminum drift bottle. The tower collapsed, the tree city burned, XX has perished, the Sun's Child will rise into the sky with the flames, the children who are stranded outside. You are free. Perhaps this was referring to the great disaster that the Malfa continent had suffered. But some of the timeline did not match. According to the old cobbler Phil and the diary of Philip Taiyang's descendants, their ancestors were only exiled a few hundred years ago. That note probably recorded the civilization of the Sun's Child from a few hundred years ago, and not the distant ancient civilization. Moreover, List had salvaged a sunken sky ship. Based on the state of decay, it was at most 1,000 years old, and the Moon Empire had been destroyed for many years, at least a few thousand years, or even tens of thousands of years. It seemed to be an ancient civilization of a different era than the Sun's Child civilization. Perhaps there is another possibility. After the Moon Empire was destroyed, the countries established by the Night all claimed to have inherited the glory of the Moon Empire. Perhaps the Sun's Child civilization also had an heir, but this heir was destroyed again? He frowned, but soon he felt that he might have misunderstood. Perhaps the Sun's Child civilization was not an ancient civilization of the Moon Empire. Otherwise, there would be records of the Sun's Child in the few words passed down by the Moon Empire. Perhaps the Sun's Child is a new civilization of the Malfa continent? He even felt that the Sun's Child might also be a remnant of the Moon Empire. Just like the Moon Killer living on the Flame Island, there might be a group of remnant of the Moon Empire who crossed the Devil's Sea and settled down on the Malfa continent. One is the Moon Killer, and the other is the Sun's Child. I feel like their names are quite symmetrical. Thinking too much about some problems made his head hurt. Liz suppressed these problems after washing up and ate a simple breakfast with a chi. Then they continued their journey. The Copper Mountain Dragon was the most important thing at the moment. There were many tributaries in the upper reaches of the Rhine River. Fortunately, the main river was very wide. Flying along the river, they finally came to a huge mountain range at the end of May. This mountain range had many branches, but the mountain was fractured, which was the symbol of the Hungduan mountain range. Achi, we have arrived. This is the Hungduan mountain range. List took out a map from his space ring. According to the map Duke Piero gave me, there is a special strip of mountains in the Hungduan mountain range. They are arranged like blades and are very easy to identify. The Hungduan mountain range was very vast. Its surface area might be as big as a province on Earth. It was not easy to find it even on a dragon. Fortunately, List had plenty of time. He could slowly investigate from a high altitude, and he only needed to lock onto the strip of mountains. He did not let the green gem dragoness follow him. He and Achi rode the invisible dragon Bard and escaped into the material boundary. Bard was extremely fast and had a wide field of vision. He could also turn invisible and reduce the distance at which his aura could be exposed. He could completely avoid the detection of the Copper Mountain Dragon. Noon the next day, suddenly, a mountain range with a special shape appeared in their field of vision. Brother, isn't that a strip of mountains? It looks like a row of blades, Achi reminded. The invisible dragon turned its head. In the crystal white orbit's field of vision, it suddenly discovered a bright golden light in that mountain range. Because it was very far away, more than 100 kilometers, the shape of the golden light could not be seen clearly. However, List was certain that it was where the orichalcum drakes were. Only a supreme demon could display such a magnificent radiance in a crystal white trail. Found it. As the formless dragon approached, List caught the unique aura of the orichalcum drakes. He was sure that it was a dragon. Brother, what do we do next? Achi asked. I'll call Ethan over. Let Leo and Ethan hold back the Copper Mountain Dragon, and I'll go capture the traitor Andre. List's eyes flashed. He had already come up with a plan that he thought was exquisite, but was actually very reckless. In short, they just had to go and do it. 3 dragons, a magic shooter, and a dragon knight. Even if the Copper Mountain Dragon was powerful and could even defeat the white Iron Dragon Knight, it would not be able to resist such a luxurious team. Especially after more than a month of training, Leo had grown by leaps and bounds. He could fight and defend, and was much stronger than when he ambushed the gray Iron Dragon. They communicated using the Dragon Heart Code. Ethan, who was repairing in the distance, immediately rose and soared. He could not hold his aura, so when he was within 100 kilometers of the Copper Mountain Dragon, the golden light quickly moved. However, it did not escape from the strip of mountains. Dragons did not have a strong sense of territory, but a battle was unavoidable with an unfamiliar dragon approaching. Roar! Ethan also sensed the aura of the Copper Mountain Dragon. He let out a dragon roar and charged directly toward the Copper Mountain Dragon. Beside him was List, who was riding on Bard. The 2 dragons crossed the distance of 100 kilometers in an instant, and the invisible dragon's aura could not be hidden anymore. However, the Copper Mountain Dragon did not escape. In crystal white vision, the Copper Mountain Dragon did not even use its flying posture. It was obviously highly confident in its abilities and did not think that 2 dragons could defeat its indestructible scales. Roar! A domineering roar came from the strip of mountains. The Copper Mountain Dragon was warning Ethan and Bard, the 2 intruders. They did not need to learn dragon language to understand the warning. Roar! Wuxia! Not to be outdone, Ethan and Bard continued to fly at high speed, closing in on the Copper Mountain Dragon. When the distance between them had shrunk to 10 kilometers, the Copper Mountain Dragon finally stood up and spread its wings. Its huge wings flapped lightly, and its strong and thick hind legs stomped on the ground. Its body was already in the air, and it was charging toward Ethan and Bard. In the crystal white field of vision, it was an all-encompassing posture. What a huge dragon! List was shocked. Even though Duke Piero had said that the Copper Mountain Dragon was much larger than the Iron Dragon, he was still astonished. He was already shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. This Copper Mountain Dragon's wingspan was definitely more than 70 meters or even 80 meters. There was probably no dragon with a wingspan greater than that below the elemental dragon. Roar! Suddenly, another domineering roar interrupted the confrontation between the three dragons. This was the entrance of the little fire dragon, Leo. He felt the copper mountain dragon's dominance, and his heart was filled with anger. No dragon could be arrogant in front of an adult fire dragon with a wingspan of 100 meters, even if it was still a fire dragon in its infancy. Boom! The flames dispersed, and Leo's body was revealed. It had already reached a wingspan and length of 35 meters, only slightly smaller than the light green gem dragon with a wingspan of 45 meters. Black and red scales flickered between light and dark. Chapter 9:11. Leo, don't be rash. Work with Ethan to restrain the orichalcum dragons. I'll be right back. List instructed Ethan and Leo using the Dragon Heart Code. Following that, he turned around and flew toward the mountain where the orichalcum dragons used to rest. According to the clues provided by Duke Piero's mice, Andre always followed the orichalcum dragons closely and only returned to the logistics team when they needed supplies. Whether it was Andre or the logistics team, List had to kill them all, in case the news leaked. Although he was not afraid of falling out with the Eagle Kingdom, delaying the news of the orichalcum dragons being stolen would make it easier to complete the smoke mission. The smoke mission required the three kingdoms to acknowledge the Fire Kingdom. As long as he dealt with the Eagle Kingdom, the Blast Furnace Castle and Steel Ridge should not be in trouble. After the Eagle Kingdom acknowledged it, List did not care how they fell out with him. Achi, help me search carefully. Andre should not be hunting at this time. He must be hiding nearby and spying when he heard the dragon roar. Okay, Crystal White Orbit and the Eye of Magic searched the vicinity of the orichalcum dragon's lair at the same time. Although as a cheater, List did not care about talented people, he always had some resentment towards geniuses in his heart. Why could he improve so quickly by relying on the smoke mission? These geniuses could improve just by eating and drinking. Soon, List and Achi found a tent at the foot of the cliff of the orichalcum dragon's lair. Without a doubt, this was where Andre lived. As the genius knight who attacked the orichalcum dragons, he had been following the orichalcum dragons, hoping to move the orichalcum dragons with his indomitable spirit and give it a chance for a spiritual battle. He's not in the tent, but the bonfire has not been extinguished. He's hiding nearby. List scanned the area and had a clear idea. He raised his head and slowly looked at the towering cliff. As expected, near the top of the cliff, there was a humanoid figure made of magic. It was reflected in the crystal white orbit's vision. This guy must have been attracted by the dragon roar and wants to see what kind of dragon it is. He might even want to take advantage of the situation and ride two dragons at once. He smiled, becoming one with the dragon. Xiao Chun charged toward the entrance of the cave. Meanwhile, Andre Sapphire, who was standing at the mouth of the cave and watching the battle between the three behemoths a dozen kilometers away, could not hold back the thought of reaping the benefits of the third party, as List expected. Fight! Fight! It'd be best if the orichalcum and the two young dragons are all crippled. The dragon was heavily injured, and that was his chance. But that dragon seems to be a fire dragon, and that light green dragon seems to be the light green gem dragon that the Eagle Kingdom lost. Andre had always been attacking the mountain copper dragons and didn't understand the current situation in the outside world. He only learned about the rise of a famous fire dragon knight in the Azure Wave Sea during the process of resupplying. However, it was said that the fire dragon only had a wingspan of 20 meters. It was much smaller than the one in front of them. Only a year and a half had passed, so the fire dragon couldn't have grown so big. So this one wasn't the other one. The fire dragon has extraordinary battle prowess. If the Sapphire family didn't have the participation of the fire dragon knight, they would have been destroyed long ago. My grandfather and father's hatred could also be immediately avenged. But don't worry. Wait for me to ride the mountain copper dragon and personally destroy the Grand Duchy of Sapphire to fulfill grandfather's wish. He still remembered that when he helped his grandfather pluck a white hair from his head when he was a child, his grandfather said, "Everyone has to die." "But I don't want grandfather to die," the young Andre said very domineeringly. "No one can't die, except for the Lord of Dragon Domain. Then grandfather will be the Lord of Dragon Domain. I can't. Only the Sapphire family has the chance. Andre will help grandfather become the Lord of Dragon Domain." Grandfather held him on his lap and said kindly, "Only a dragon can be the Lord of Dragon Domain. Grandfather doesn't dare to extravagantly ask to become the Lord of Dragon Domain. But if I can obtain a wisp of a dragon's soul and become an immortal lich, that's also very good. Andre, when you become a dragon knight, give grandfather a wisp of a dragon's soul as a birthday gift." Andre not only wants to give grandfather a wisp of a dragon's soul, but also a dragon. As a filial grandson, Andre still remembered the promise he made to his grandfather, the Bull Marquis, when he was a child. He looked at the two unfamiliar dragons that were being forced back by the mountain copper dragon and were at a disadvantage. His heart was burning, and he couldn't wait to ride the mountain copper dragon and leave these two dragons behind. Grandfather has already perished, so I will shoulder grandfather's wish. I will be the Dragon Knight and the Lord of Dragon Domain. However, before the burning in his heart could brew to a climax, a clear greeting suddenly came to his ears. "Young lad, did you lose this mountain copper dragon or this little fire dragon?" "Yes." Andre suddenly came to his senses and immediately pulled out the knight sword that he carried with him. He turned around and was about to lean against the corner of the cave wall. His reaction could not be said to be slow, but when he raised his head and looked in the direction of the voice, he was almost scared out of his wits. A sparkling and translucent dragon that looked like flowing crystals was floating at the side of the cave entrance. On the dragon's back was a knight wearing silver-white armor and holding a large azure sword. His extremely handsome face was looking at him with a faint smile. Beside the knight, there was a beautiful girl wrapped in a magic cloak, but she was not looking at him. She was only watching the battle of the dragons in the distance. "Who are you?" Andre suppressed his fear and asked with a trembling voice. He had been with the Eagle Kingdom for many years and had always been a member of the Dragon Knight Reserve program, but he had never seen or heard of such a dragon. Although it did not look big at all, with only a wingspan of more than 10 meters, its beauty was breathtaking, like a mandala flower stained with dew. Its whole body was exuding a dangerous aura. "It seems that you did not lose these two dragons. Since you did not lose the dragons, you obviously have bad intentions by sticking your head out here and looking around. It is very likely that you are thinking about my dragon." As he spoke, Bart, who was spiritually connected with List, suddenly released a terrifying dragon's might, oppressing Andre, who was already trembling slightly, as if he was being strangled. List jumped into the cave and grabbed Andre, who was trying to struggle. He took out special handcuffs and shackles that could lock combat energy and directly locked Andre up. Without strong resistance, a mere sword saint could not resist the strong oppression of the Dragon Knight. "Who are you? What do you want?" Andre, who was thrown on the ground, roared. "Tell me where the logistics team of the Eagle Kingdom is." List did not want to talk nonsense with the villain. "Who are you? Do you know what you are doing?" "I am the Dragon Knight candidate of the Eagle Kingdom. Behind me stands the Eagle Royal family. Even if you are the Dragon Knight, you have to think carefully. I am not good at interrogating people. I should have brought a blood servant here." List shook his head and suddenly raised the Ice Soul Dragon, slaying sword in his hand. "Since you're not willing to say, I will kill you first and then slowly find the logistics team of the Eagle Kingdom." Clang! The sword light suddenly appeared. Chapter 9:12. Achi, wait outside with Bard. The scene may be a bit bloody, so don't follow us. He signaled Bard and Achi to leave. List personally carried the Ice Soul Dragon's slaying sword and rushed into the Eagle Kingdom's logistics team. Dragon Fighting Spirit and Dragon Might were used together to kill. The logistics team, including the knight and servants, were all buried under his blade. No one escaped. There was no scene of blood splashing. The fire fighting spirit directly roasted the flesh when it cut it. Igniting a fire, the logistics team's camp was completely torn apart in the flames, burying everything. Looking at the rising flames, List had some inexplicable emotions in his heart. Once upon a time, ordinary office workers on Earth, who felt it cruel to kill a chicken, slaughtered a group of people because of a decision made in a moment. Fortunately, the other party was a hostile force and a dragon snatcher. There were no ordinary people, so he did not blame himself. In the world ruled by the night, weakness was the original sin, especially when it came to dragons. It was the Eagle Kingdom who made the first move. I was just fighting back. Moreover, you helped the traitor Andre of Sapphire. Your crimes are unforgivable. Casually making an excuse as psychological comfort, List shook his head and turned to leave the camp under the raging fire. From the first time he participated in a war, killing was no longer a psychological obstacle for him. As long as it was not the slaughter of civilians, the war between the night was nothing more than a game to him. Let's go, Chi. List returned to the invisible dragon and glanced at Andre. He wanted to kill him, but after thinking about it, he felt that he should be kept and given to the Sapphire Grand Duke. He could exchange some fighting spirit secret skills from the Sapphire Grand Duke, or some information about the Lord of the Dragon Domain and the Lich. However, soon he changed his mind. If I ride too many dragons in a short period of time, it may cause a strong sense of crisis in the three kingdoms. Perhaps I can disguise it and make it look like Andre successfully rode the dragon and killed the Eagle Kingdom's logistics team, rebelling against the Eagle Kingdom. As for the Eagle Kingdom daring to let Andre ride the dragon, there must be a check and balance. But who could guarantee that Andre would not undo this check and balance? This kind of check and balance method shouldn't use family as a threat. Family doesn't have a strong binding force on nobles. It should be some kind of magic method, like a contract or a curse. With the existence of a Chi, a magic shooter, and a huge group of mages in the Guild of Magic, it will not be difficult to resolve the contract. Even if Andre is killed by the contract or curse, what loss is there for me? It's decided then. He signaled Bard to capture Andre and rush to where Ethan, Leo, and the Orichalcum dragons were fighting. He found a corner and left Andre there. Then, he rode Bard and charged into the battlefield. Wuxia, the formless dragon, did not attack the Orichalcum dragon. Ethan and Leo also stopped attacking at the same time. The previous battle between the dragons had not been fierce. Roar! The Orichalcum dragon stared fearlessly at the formless dragon that had suddenly appeared. Oh! Leo also responded, unwilling to be outdone. Orichalcum dragon, I know you can understand the language of the wind. Why don't we put down our dispute and talk peacefully? I think there's some misunderstanding between us, List said loudly, breaking the tense atmosphere. He had already gotten information about the Orichalcum dragons from Andre. The Orichalcum dragons had obviously learned the language of the wind after being attacked by the night for a long period of time. Dragons were very smart. They could easily grasp the meaning of a few words. Communication was not a problem at all. The Orichalcum dragon glanced at List and responded with a look of looking at an ant. It did not bother to communicate. To show my sincerity, I brought your favorite Tempest bird eggs and a secret barbecued tender steak, as well as some of your favorite fruits. List took out a batch of food from his space ring unhurriedly and placed it on the ground to show his attitude. In fact, he only brought the tender steak to reward Leo, Bard, and Ethan. Dragons generally like to eat beef. As for the Tempest bird eggs and a large amount of fruits, they were gathered from the logistics team's camp. These were all used by Andre to attack the Orichalcum dragons. He made use of it. He placed a mystifying dragon's soul fruit in the secret barbecued tender steak. This was a sudden idea. He had originally planned to defeat the Orichalcum dragon first before forcefully feeding it the mystifying dragon's soul fruit. However, the grudge of the gray-mouthed iron dragon own made him feel that perhaps he could be a little gentler with his methods. There would definitely be a difference in effect between riding a dragon in a daze and riding a dragon with a bow. Roar! The Orichalcum dragon squinted its eyes. Its golden scales shone brightly under the sunlight. Its pupils moved slightly and glanced at the food on the ground. It then let out a warning roar. This meant that it was unmoved by List's goodwill and did not want to have any unnecessary interaction with List. It even expanded the scales on its body and sent out a signal to attack. Since you're not willing to accept my goodwill, then we'll part ways here. List did not waste any time. He called out to the three-headed dragon and flew away. Sure enough, Leo and Ethan flew out of the orichalcum dragon's sensing range, but Bard escaped into the material boundary and quietly hid at the edge of the orichalcum dragon's sensing range. List took out a pair of binoculars and carefully looked at the empty space where the food was thrown. He stared at the steak that he had arranged. Because of the dragon might, there were no wild beasts or World of Warcraft nearby to eat. The food was lying quietly on the ground. The orichalcum dragon was far away from the food. It lay on another mountain and did not eat. It was not known if it did not eat because it was vigilant, or because it was not hungry, or because it did not want to eat List's food. "Brother, are we going to keep waiting?" Achi asked curiously. "Let's wait a little longer. When the sky turns dark, if it still doesn't eat, then I'll take the steak back." List was very patient. He had to be patient in order to tempt a dragon that had the intelligence of a human. Dragons had a special physique. No poison could poison them to death. Therefore, with a free meal in front of him, if it were List, he would definitely not waste it and would not be suspicious. The sky quickly darkened. The orichalcum dragon that had been lying there for a long time did not wait for the familiar little ant to deliver food to it. It was a little confused, but it quickly realized that the little ant might have been killed. It's that damned human and the three-headed scum that was willing to be ridden by the ant. The orichalcum dragon was an adult dragon. It had lived for hundreds of years and had come into contact with many humans. It knew how fierce humans were when it came to dragons. The Dragon Knight from before must have come to steal the dragon. Therefore, it had to kill the competitor first. Troublesome. It raised its head. It felt that there was no way it could rest in this place. The Dragon Knight would definitely come again and pester it again. It did not like the Dragon Knight from the bottom of its heart. It always felt that the quality of the Dragon Knight conflicted with its own. It could not see any shine of sacrifice. However, the orichalcum dragon suddenly remembered that the Dragon Knight seemed to have left a portion of the food before he left. He wanted to use some food to seduce it. Naive, childish, laughable. Was it a dragon that would bend its back for a bit of food? There was no ant in this world that was worthy of it lowering its proud head. I need to change places and see if there are any ants that are pleasing to the eye that could be my food. The orichalcum dragon flapped its wings and slowly walked to the empty space where the food was placed. However, before I leave, I should eat the food that the Dragon Knight left behind. Wouldn't that be perfect? It hated List, but did not hate food. It walked over. The food was still lying there quietly. There were only a few real ants crawling on it. These little bugs did not react to the dragon's might. However, it only needed to blow a breath to kill all the ants. It was just a simple application of the dragon's mana. It then swallowed the basket of thunderstorm bird eggs in one gulp. The thunderstorm bird was an intermediate-level World of Warcraft. Strangely, the male bird was of the wind element while the female bird was of the thunder element. However, the eggs had both elements. After the gender was born, only one element was left. In its long life, the orichalcum dragon had a special liking for the thunderstorm bird eggs. However, the thunderstorm birds liked to nest in narrow caves. Thunderstorm birds were also very clever. Once the dragon's huge body appeared and the dragon's might was released, they would immediately flee. Thus, it was very difficult to find their eggs. After eating the eggs, the orichalcum dragon ate some fruits and finally looked at the tender steak. The steak was already cold and did not smell as fragrant as when it was freshly cooked. However, the orichalcum dragon sniffed and swallowed the entire steak in one gulp. SOSO. After eating all the food, it prepared to find a mountain to spend the night and leave the next morning. However, just as it flapped its wings, it suddenly felt sleepy. It shook its head hard, but could not resist the strong drowsiness. Its eyelids were heavy. After a while, the orichalcum dragon could no longer resist the sleepiness and fell to the ground with a thud, crushing a large part of the forest. Snore, a loud snore resounded through the sky. Chapter 9:13. Amidst the loud snoring, List descended from the sky and landed beside the golden orichalcum dragon. The sky gradually darkened, but this did not stop him from taking out the crystal lamp, the magic flashlight, and carefully observing this huge creature. The classification of metal dragons was very interesting. Gold, silver, copper, iron, and tin all had corresponding dragons. Lead, mercury, titanium, platinum, and other metals also had corresponding dragons. Often, one metal had different dragons. Iron dragons could be divided into 5 known categories: Blackheart Iron Dragon, Whiteheart Iron Dragon, Monmouth Iron Dragon, Whitemouth Iron Dragon, and Greymouth Iron Dragon. Copper dragons could be divided into 4 known categories: Bronze Dragon, Copper Dragon, and Copper Dragon. But the orichalcum dragon did not belong to the category of copper dragon. It was a magical metal dragon. Orichalcum was an indestructible metal. It looked a bit like gold, but its color was brighter. Normal casting methods could not forge orichalcum. Only Iron Knight could forge it with fighting energy. The Taro family of Red Crab Island had an orders of chivalry that used orichalcum alloy to forge armor. It looked shiny and very cool. Clang, clang. List used the hilt of his sword to knock on the scales of the orichalcum dragon. There was a crisp metallic sound. Achie, if I infuse my dragon fighting energy and stab down, do you think I can pierce through this scale? Why would Big Brother stab it? Achie laughed. I don't like this guy. It looked down on me before. He was just joking. After confirming that the orichalcum dragon was completely paralyzed by the dragon enchanting fruit, he quickly found the dragon fong platform where the orichalcum dragon's neck and body was connected. Help me guard it. I'm going to start the spiritual battle. Okay. With Achie guarding him, List was very assured. He aimed at the dragon fong platform and sat down. Boom! A strange and wondrous feeling went straight to his head. The next moment, he was already in a shining golden world. In this world, everything was golden. Golden soil, golden trees, and a golden sun hung in the golden sky. In the center of this world, there was a huge, transparent golden rock. There was a loud snoring sound coming from the rock. The orichalcum dragon was sleeping soundly within the boulder. The 7-colored radiance on its body was faintly discernible. This was the power of the enchanting dragon's soul fruit enveloping it. Although it's not the first time I've used the mystical dragon soul fruit, every time I see the dragon in the spiritual world being paralyzed, I'm amazed by the power of the emerald dragon. I'm afraid that any dragon that eats the bewildering dragon's soul fruit will be bound by this power and be at the mercy of others. Leo ate and was ridden, Orn ate and was ridden, and now it was Copper Dragon's turn. Only the invisible dragon wasn't paralyzed by the mystical dragon spirit fruit. But that wasn't because the mystical dragon spirit fruit wasn't powerful, but because Bard had seen through the mystical dragon spirit fruit and refused to eat it. If it didn't see through it and ate it directly, it would probably be paralyzed as well. But even if the invisible dragon was paralyzed, it would still be very difficult to defeat it in a battle of the mind. That complex maze wasn't something a knight could complete. If it hadn't taken the initiative to lower the difficulty of the maze, List wouldn't have been able to win. What I need to do now is to break this rock. Standing in front of the 100-meter-tall rock, List already knew how to conduct the mind battle. If he wanted to win, he had to break this rock that symbolized the indestructibility of the Copper Dragon. It was hard to imagine how Andre would break this rock if he rode on the Copper Dragon. Even if he licked the Copper Dragon to its climax in reality, he still had to face this rock that was almost indestructible in the mind battle. Perhaps after a long period of pounding, he would eventually be able to break it. But the time for the mind battle was limited. The preparations that Andre and the Eagle Kingdom thought they were infallible were simply useless. A bootlicker will end up with nothing in the end, List shook his head. That's why I still prefer to use violent means. Just do it. He lowered his head and looked at the Azure Ice Soul Dragon, slaying sword in his hand. With a flicker of his thoughts, the smoke on his body quickly entangled the Ice Soul Dragon's slaying sword, and then the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword rapidly expanded into a sledgehammer. He took a deep breath. List suddenly brandished the sledgehammer and fiercely hit the golden transparent rock. 80, 80, 80. After 3 hits, the golden rock only trembled twice and didn't leave any marks. Obviously, a hammer would not be able to break this rock. He had to think of another way. If it were a native knight, he would probably be in a terrible fix, but List still had a lot of inspiration. The smoke entangled him again, and this time the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword changed from a sledgehammer to a drill. He took another deep breath, and the dragon's battle energy in his body patrolled around, casting the battle energy secret technique, spiral rotation. He then drove the drill in his hand to spin crazily. On. An ear-piercing noise was produced between the drill and the rock. In the next moment, powder flew in all directions, and the drill had already broken through the outer layer of the rock. There's a chance. List's heart was at ease. He concentrated his thoughts, and the smoke became more solid. The drill in his hand also became faster and faster, and it worked vigorously, drilling through the outer layer of the rock bit by bit. The moment the outer layer was drilled through, the entire surface of the rock cracked from the drill. Gotcha! The crack spread in all directions like a spider's web, quickly covering the entire surface of the rock. The orichalcum dragon inside the rock seemed to have a reaction, and its eyelids trembled slightly. However, it was quickly suppressed by the faintly discernible 7-colored light, unable to affect the rock. He pulled out the drill. List once again relied on the power of the smoke to transform the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword into a sledgehammer, and he hammered the drill. 80, 80, 80. With each hammer strike, the cracks would expand, and even smaller cracks would appear. 80, 80, 80. On the 10th strike, densely packed cracks finally crawled all over the rock. Under List's 11th heavy strike, the rock suddenly collapsed. After the dust settled, the orichalcum dragon had woken up at some point, and it was looking at List with a complicated gaze. It was a mix of confusion, unwillingness, shock, relief, and disappointment. But in the end, it still called out to List, "Roar!" With a leap, List was already riding on its dragon-tooth platform. At this moment, the human and dragon's hearts were one, and there was no longer any difference between them. The orichalcum dragon flapped its wings, and its huge body suddenly soared into the sky, charging towards the golden sun in the sky. The sunlight was blinding, and its light covered the world. When the blinding light dissipated, List realized that he had already left the spiritual world and returned to reality. The orichalcum dragon under his, but was still letting out deafening snores, but it already had a strong telepathic connection with List. It's done. Chapter 9:14. No one knew that there were 4 dragons living in the Hungduan Mountains at this time. The Emerald Dragon Ethan, the Fire Dragon Leo, the Formless Dragon Bard, and the Orichalcum Dragon Marta. Marta was the name that List had prepared for the Orichalcum Dragon. It came from the game Monster Hunter that he had played before. In it, there was a rotten dragon nicknamed Zakawi Marm Talit, who lived in a land of gold and was known as the Mother Goddess of Gold. The orichalcum dragon did not look like Zakawi at all, and it had nothing to do with gold. They were probably only similar in color. However, List's extraordinary logical thinking still linked them together. At dawn the next day, the orichalcum dragon Marta finally woke up. Its huge body was entrenched on the ground, and its mind was still in a mess. To it, last night was like a terrible nightmare. But what was even more frightening was that this nightmare was real. It stared at List, its dark, long, and narrow pupils flickering. "Marta, this is the new name I've given you. How about it? Do you accept it?" List looked at the orichalcum dragon and said with a gentle smile. After a long time, the orichalcum dragon slowly turned its head and snorted, tacitly agreeing to everything. No matter how complicated the process was, in the end, List had won the battle of the soul. This was enough to subdue the dragon's pride and dignity, and it acknowledged him. "In that case, Achi, Use the magic platform to contact Yevich and have him confirm the latitude and longitude of the sextant. We could take a look at the scenery of Snowstorm Mountain Duchy on the way back. With a leap, List landed on Marta's Dragontooth platform and instantly completed the connection between man and dragon. He then guided Marta through the Dragon Rider resonance and quickly entered Dragon Rider mode. For a Dragon Knight who was familiar with dragon riding, this process was very easy. Achi sat on the back of the invisible dragon, took out the magic platform, and contacted Yevich. Taking advantage of the reply time, List and Marta first flew to the supply camp that had been burned by the fire yesterday, leaving a few orichalcum dragon footprints to disguise the scene. They created the impression that Andre had ridden the dragon up the mountain and destroyed the camp, reversing the appearance of the Eagle Kingdom. After doing all these, when Xianxia rushed back, he received a reply from the Devil Altar. Achi received the coordinates and analyzed the specific location. Brother, from here, 15 degrees to the south, fly about 1,000 kilometers, and you'll arrive at Yevich's location. 1,000 kilometers. It'll take a day and a night to fly. Let's go. With that thought in his mind, Marta flapped his wings and soared into the sky with a roar. Bar brought Achi and followed closely behind. Then, it was Leo and Ethan's turn. Ethan's claws were still holding onto Andre, who was tied up, blindfolded, and gagged. This young knight, who was hated by the Sapphire Grand Duke, wasn't worth much. But if they could exchange him for some information about the Domain Knight and the Lich, it would be worth it. No matter how small a mosquito's leg was, it was still meat. Even List, who raised 5 dragons, had to be diligent and thrifty. The team walked and stopped from time to time. When they left, their mood was completely different from when they came. They only felt that the sun was so bright and the moon was so bright. While he was riding, he communicated with Marta intimately to understand Marta's information in order to formulate a training plan. He also started to create the Orichalcum Dragon Knight, Dragon Fighting Secret Manual. Marta, do you know the copper-plated state? The copper-plated state was a natural ability of the metal dragons. Some dragons had it, and some didn't. The gray-mouthed iron dragon, Aun, didn't have this ability. Strictly speaking, this should be called the gold-plated state. It was a protective method that the metal dragons used their supreme magic to form a layer of the same type of metal shell to strengthen the defense of the surface of their bodies. The gold-plated state of the Orichalcum dragon could be called the copper-plated state. Roar! Marta's answer was very domineering. He didn't know it, and he didn't need to know it, because his defense was already strong enough. He didn't need these fancy abilities. It's a pity. Although you don't need protection, the knight does. If you have the copper-plated state at a critical moment, the Orichalcum Dragon Knight's combat power would definitely be off the charts. List stretched out his hand and flicked the golden scales on Marta's neck. It was hard to imagine how much strength would be needed to penetrate it. Perhaps he could only break it slightly if he used the full power of the Dragon Fighting Secret Manual. Roar! Marta was very proud of his powerful defensive scales. He also thought that his golden color was the most beautiful color, the most beautiful among the dragons. It was beautiful, but in front of Bard, who was like a flowing crystal, it was equivalent to a nouveau riche wearing a big gold chain. Regarding this, List didn't continue. He changed the topic. What's the state of your dragon breath? Is it a metal torrent? The purple copper dragon's metal torrent dragon breath could turn into countless bullet-like metal balls. The gray-mouthed iron dragon breath could turn into countless blade-like metal pieces. Roar! Marta's answer was no. Its dragon breath was a special kind of magic that was extremely malleable. It could turn into a shield to block attacks, a spear to pierce through the enemy, or an object wrapped in a thin film. It could also recover the orichalcum formed by the dragon breath into a magic form. Under List's strong request, Marta decided to show off its dragon breath. The dragon opened its mouth and spat out a golden stream of air. It quickly turned into a huge javelin against the wind and shot towards a mountain. The orichalcum javelin pierced into the mountain. The powerful impact almost shattered the entire mountain. It was very powerful. Then it flew close to the ground. When it passed by the mountain, It opened its mouth, and a golden stream of air flew out from the original javelin. It was swallowed back into its stomach. Although it could recover it, the process of releasing and retrieving it still consumed some supreme magic. Of course, this amount of supreme magic was nothing to an adult orichalcum dragon. It had already lived for 200 years, and the supreme magic stored in its body was enough for a long time. A very powerful move. I've decided. This move shall be called Dragon Breath End. List instantly thought of the T-1000 in Terminator. It was a Terminator robot made of liquid memory metal controlled by thoughts, and it could transform freely. Then he thought of something else. Then, Marta, can you recover all the orichalcum? I mean the orichalcum that might not be produced by you. Marta replied that he could not. The orichalcum spat out by the Dragon Breath End would still have supreme magic properties for a short period of time. However, as time passed, these supreme demons would dissipate after an hour. Orichalcum without supreme magic was basically no different from ordinary orichalcum. It could not be recovered. In that case, why don't we trade resources? Marta, I'll use all my resources to support you from now on. Delicacies, potions, everything. How about you spit out a 10-meter-long orichalcum dragon spear for me now? He had a 5-meter-long alloy dragon spear, Thunder's Fury. When used with Bard and Ethan, a 5-meter-long dragon spear was enough. However, Marta was 80 meters long and had a wingspan of 75 meters. A 5-meter-long dragon spear was seriously unsuitable. It had to be 10 meters long to be able to be used with the dragon's fighting technique. Since Marta had such abilities, he could use it to make a 10-meter-long dragon spear. A dragon spear made of pure orichalcum did not need any Iron Knight forging techniques. It was a powerful weapon on its own. Marta felt List's bewitchment. He turned his head and looked at List. List looked at it with a smile. The man and dragon flew for a full 50 kilometers while staring at each other. Their minds were in a stalemate. In the end, it was Marta who lost. In the game between the dragon and the knight, perseverance was victory, and perseverance was one of List's best qualities. Unwilling to give up, it opened its mouth and aimed at List. It gently spat out a golden stream of magic power, which turned into a 10-meter-long dragon spear as thick as a finger. The spearhead was sharp and conical, and the spear shaft had spiral and twisted patterns. The end of the spear gradually thinned and could also be used as a spearhead. This 10-meter-long orichalcum dragon spear was made according to List's wishes. He grabbed it in his hand and felt as if it weighed 10,000 kilograms. If not for his strong physique and the support of his fighting aura, he would not have been able to lift it. He tried to dance it. It was heavy and stable. Although he was not yet familiar with it, it felt very good. This is the dragon spear I want. He infused the dragon's fighting aura, and the orichalcum dragon spear instantly burst into bright red flames. It was like a superconductor in conduction of fighting aura. Marta, charge with me. Under the guidance of his thoughts, the man and dragon began their first charge. They swooped toward a steep mountain not far away. The golden wings folded and flew past the mountain. At the same time, List waved the orichalcum dragon spear and blasted out a flame slash that was a mixture of dragon magic and dragon's fighting aura. It smashed into the top of the mountain and directly cut off more than half of it. Amidst the loud rumbling sounds, countless gravel rolled down the valley and broke countless trees. Chapter 9:15. It was indeed a pleasure. However, not far away, Leo roared in dissatisfaction. It was very dissatisfied with List's increasing number of dragons. This put List in a very difficult position, and he gradually felt that his energy was running out. A normal dragon knight had to spend their whole life to train one dragon, but he had to train so many in such a short time. It was really difficult. Now he could only hope that he could brand his image in the minds of some of the resource dragons as soon as possible, and then find suitable knight or dung scooper for them. Emily was temporarily designated as the dragon knight of the light emerald dragon Ethan, and Ethan was about to form a soul brand. It's not enough. Emily alone can't help it all. She can't take the burden of taking care of the dragons. It seems that when I go back, I have to select a group of talented children from the orphans and focus on training them. I hope that in a few years or 10 years, these children can become qualified Dragon Knight. It was too difficult to become a Dragon Knight. All the kingdoms were carrying out the Dragon Knight selection program, but not every dragon could find a suitable knight. Many dragons have been absent for decades, or even centuries. Without the cooperation of the Dragon Knight, it was a big problem to only rely on the soul brand left by the first-generation Dragon Knight. The kingdoms could not command these dragons at will, and some dragons would not give face to the king when they were angry. They also had to provide a lot of resources for the daily consumption of the dragons. It's best to issue a few fake missions about talents, so that the good seedlings can't be buried. In short, as more and more dragons were riding, List felt pain and happiness at the same time. The sun rose and set. At the beginning of June, Marta the mountain bronze dragon and Ethan the light emerald dragon stayed in a forest to rest, and the little fire dragon Leo returned. Riding the invisible dragon bard, List and a chief flew straight to the designated location. It was a small city in the Snow Wind Principality. It was the territory of a viscount. Yevich considered himself as the Eagle Kingdom's exploration team and hooked up with this viscount to talk about border smuggling. Therefore, they temporarily stayed in this small city called Fritillary City. Fritillary was a big, colorful bird that looked like a chicken, and Fritillary City was famous for its abundance of fritillary. Kansas Highland Barley, the Viscount of Bima's City, was the lord of this place. He had a Highland Barley elf. The Highland Barley here was very similar to barley, and it was not known if they were the same species. In a manor bought by Yevich outside the city, List and Achi walked out of the material boundary and saw Clearwater Sword Master Yevich Water Peanut, whom they had not seen for more than half a year. There were also 2 other Sky Knights and a large number of expedition members. Your Highness! Yevich was very excited to be able to meet Sir Lord in a foreign country thousands of miles away. The expedition team that followed him were also very excited. Yevich, I'm very satisfied with your dedication during the voyage. You've also contributed greatly to the Fire Kingdom's expansion of their territory. I will officially confer you the title of Earl. After the Fire Kingdom is established, I will immediately grant you the title of Earl. List didn't bother with pleasantries. He first took out a carrot to reward the knight. Yevich was so excited that he almost burst into tears. Thank you for your kindness, Your Highness. Yevich is willing to fight for Your Highness. When he was young, he became famous in the Dragon Knight clan. However, after several twists and turns, his title of Earl was not smooth, and he didn't have a good relationship with several lords. He thought that his life would be wasted, but unexpectedly, he was conferred the title of Earl in the unestablished Fire Kingdom. This is the title and land you deserve. In the future, the Fire Kingdom will still need your continued contribution. List comforted Yevich and turned to look at the other 2 Sky Knights. They surrendered to List during the Battle of the Sea and later joined the expedition team. They had worked hard to discover the 3rd archipelago, supply the main island, and investigate the Kingdom of Yellowstone, so they were also conferred the title of Viscount. They were restored to the title they had before they surrendered. The land was also conferred after the country was established. The other knight of the expedition team were conferred the title of Lord Knight or Baron. The sailors who were serfs were also promised by List to restore their status as free people and grant them land. In fact, as long as they were fire people, he would gradually arrange for them to become free people, paving the way for the future knight class. The Moon Killers were the main force of the serf class. However, he would also train a group of knight class among the Moon Killers to divide them. It was not impossible for the talented Moon Killers to be promoted to Dragon Knight. The little girl, named Hippolyta, was one of the first batch of Moon Killers trained by List. Because she sheltered a few elves, he had a good impression of Hippolyta and decided to make her a noble in the future. The little girl's talent in magic was very poor, and she had already switched to learning Qi, but he did not know if she could achieve anything. You don't have to worry about getting nothing for your efforts. As your lord, I will not forget any knight who fought for me. Land, wealth, women, elves. As long as you follow me and dedicate yourself to me, I can give you everything you want. We are willing to charge for His Highness." The knights who had just been promoted to nobility shouted excitedly. They could not wait to immediately mount their war horses and charge into battle to repay His Highness with their lives. After some commotion, the knights were dismissed, and they continued to do what they were supposed to do, which was to gather information. List kept Yevich and the other two Sky Knights to inquire about the details of the investigation. Yevich narrated, "We have done detailed investigation of the Snowwind Mountain Duchy and the Kingdom of Yellowstone according to your Highness's instructions. However, because of the lack of time and manpower, most of the information was obtained through the channels of the local nobles, so it may not be very accurate. In the era of the knight, who basically relied on walking for transportation, the sparse population would greatly limit the flow of information. Perhaps the knight of the Snowwind Mountain Duchy did not even know that there was a Grand Duchy of Sapphire on the sea, and even the Duke of the Snowwind Mountain did not know that there had been a dragon-slaying battle on the sea. The Snowwind Mountain Duchy and the Eagle Kingdom did not have any official diplomatic channels or trade channels. Give me a general idea. The Kingdom of Yellowstone has 6 vassal states. The situation of the dragon and the dragon knight is unknown. Among them, the Snowwind Mountain Duchy is in the north of Yellowstone, but because of the ice field and the fact that the Eagle Kingdom has never explored the south, there is little communication between the two states. The main way of communication between Yellowstone and the Eagle Kingdom is through its other vassal state, the Grand Duchy of Dragon Spring Lake. It was said that the Grand Duchy of Dragon Spring Lake had 2 dragons. Not only was it adjacent to the Eagle Kingdom, but it was also adjacent to the Blast Furnace Kingdom. It was the only official channel between Yellowstone and the Eagle Kingdom. Because the distance was too far, it was difficult to find information there, so Yevich did not know much. He mainly knew about the Snowwind Mountain Duchy. Most of this duchy was located on a plateau. The name of the country originated from the perennial snow and high mountains. The surname of the dragon-raising family was Cornflower, and the current duke was called Skola Cornflower. Cornflower was a blue flower, a very common plant that could be found all over the legendary continent. The Cornflower family was not named because of this small blue flower, but because the family raised a cornflower jewel dragon. Cornflower is used to refer to a color, a shade darker than blue. The Snowwind Mountain Duchy was very poor. The knight class was poor, and so was the duke. Because they only traded with the Kingdom of Yellowstone, the price of the country's products, including cornflowers and sapphires, was lowered by the Kingdom of Yellowstone, which led to a very poor and backward life. If he wanted to conquer it, he only needed to use the gold dollar strategy, and he could definitely recruit half of the knight. Even if he had enough money, the Snowwind Mountain Duchy would dare to rebel against the Kingdom of Yellowstone. Duke Skola had once launched a war against the Kingdom of Yellowstone. Although he lost in the end, he was forced to pay a large amount of supplies. Based on this information, List felt that he could secretly annex the Snowwind Mountain Duchy, just like how he secretly annexed the Duchy of Grey Iron. Then, using the Snowwind Mountain Duchy as a cover, he could quickly gain a foothold in the legendary continent. Yevich, do you plan to return to Flame Island to work, or do you want to continue working here? I plan to take over the huge wasteland near the sea at the junction of the Eagle Kingdom, Snowwind Mountain Duchy, and the Kingdom of Yellowstone, and make it a part of the Flame Kingdom. With this as the foundation, I can start trading with the 2 kingdoms, or war. He casually drew a circle on the simple map that Achi had just drawn. It circled an area of at least 1,000,000 square kilometers. Then he expressed one meaning, Rob. The sea could no longer satisfy his appetite, and he had to start encircling the land. Of course, for the time being, he could not risk being attacked by the 2 kingdoms and openly rob. After 3 to 5 years, it would be convenient to carry out this plan after stabilizing the base camp of Flame Island. For the Kingdom of Yellowstone, you can first contact the Snowwind Mountain Duchy and encircle the land in the name of the Snowwind Mountain Duchy. Sooner or later, there will be a war with the Eagle Kingdom. At that time, no matter what, we can just have a few more dragon-slaying wars. List pointed at the map. His eyes were filled with disdain and dominance. I have the invisible dragon. I have the multi-headed dragon, and no one can stop me. Chapter 9:16. He asked Yevich to prepare a batch of mother-of-pearl eggs that could be hatched. List did not stay in mother-of-pearl city for too long. Snowstorm Mountain Principality was remote, and there was nothing to visit. He directly led his dragon legion and flew in the direction of the sea. Of course, considering that Achi was eager to go back and summarize the information collection and improvement of the magic array, he asked Bard to take Achi through space and return to Reed City. He rode on Marta and brought Leo and Ethan with him, flying slowly behind them. It was the first time the mountain copper dragon Marta came to the Flame Islands. He did not know the way and needed someone to take him. He also wanted to take this opportunity to get to know Marta and lay the foundation for the first generation of Dragon Knight's spiritual imprint. When they arrived at the Endless Volcano, it was already June 6th. Leo returned to his dragon lair, Doomsday Volcano, and concentrated on his training. Ainfant, the great elf, took the opportunity to satisfy his craving. Goldie, Little Red, and Little Purple also excitedly circled around Leo a few times. The three birds had grown up a lot and were very obedient under Ainfant's training. Even under Ainfant's comfort, List also rode the three birds for a while. It could be seen that this super dragon beast called Phoenix could be tamed as a mount. It's a pity that there are mounts, but there are no qualified knight. At the very least, it needs to be a young and promising fire attribute elite Earth Knight to be able to ride these blazing dragon birds and form a branch of the Burning Legion, the Imperial Knight Regiment. Of course, 3 blazing dragon birds are still too few. The next time I hear about the Phoenix, it's best to catch another batch and breed them. The super dragon beast's body was a treasure, and part of its body would hide its soul, just like the dragon's teeth, which involves some kind of special change. This inspired the next stage of the Dragon Knight's training. He and Achi both deduced that the Dragon Knight must study the soul to break the shackles. That is, spiritual power. Matter, magic, and spirit were the 3 basic rules that made up the world. As the pinnacle of power, the Dragon Knight had to start from these 3 basic rules if it wanted to break through. There is also a thunder dragon turtle on Black Horse Island. Its shell is the same as the tail feathers of the flame dragon bird. But I don't have enough super dragons. When I have time, I should go to the Pegasus Forest and look for unicorns with wind attributes. He had gotten the clue about the super dragon unicorn for a long time, but he had never found the time to look for it. He did not know whether the unicorn existed or whether it had been captured by the Knight of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. He shook his head. Hopping off the blazing dragon bird, he waved at Ainfant. Ainfant, I'm leaving. I'll see you in a few days. Well, List, bring me some blue soft jade powder. I want to change my taste, Ainfant said. No problem. After leaving the volcano of Doomsday, List thought of an idea. He brought Marta, the Orichalcum dragon, and Ethan, the Emerald dragon, and flew straight to the Hourglass Valley, the sacred mountain of the Moonslayers. There is a sacred tribe at the foot of the mountain and 6 broken statues of ancient archmages. The terrain of the Hourglass Valley was very good, and it was the absolute center of the Flaming Island. There is also the entrance to a relic waiting to be excavated. Maybe I can build my royal city here. The ancient archmages chose to build a relic here after careful selection. And when the natural nodes of the relic entrance are sorted out, I can directly build a teleportation circle so that the royal city can quickly communicate with other places. It would be best if I could directly communicate with the legendary continent. While he was thinking, the Hourglass Valley came into view. Roar! Roar! Marta and Ethan let out a deafening dragon roar at the same time, reminding the sacred tribe in the valley that a dragon knight had arrived. Their great Seiki had returned. In the language of the moon, Seiki meant saint. Back then, List, who rode the invisible dragon, successfully subdued the sacred tribe and made the Moonslayers worship Seiki. At this time, Sassamit was enjoying the gentle massage of the Moonslayer's shoulders in the tribe. He was in a very good mood. He was originally one of the many ancient sorcerers in the sacred tribe. However, a sudden catastrophe caused the original listeners and the ancient sorcerers who were loyal to the listeners to be slaughtered. That unknown outsider, Seiki, with his terrifying big lizard, had directly appointed him as the new listener of the holy tribe with his inviolable and brilliant heavenly might. From then on, Sasamit became the most authoritative person in the sacred tribe. Everywhere he went, everyone had to respectfully call him Su. Su, who was enjoying himself, suddenly heard two majestic and inviolable roars from afar. The sound was very special. Because of the distance, it was not too loud. However, the feeling of power in it made his scalp go numb. It was as if it was some kind of indescribably noble existence. What's that sound? He stood up from the moon slayer's legs and quickly walked to the window of the wooden house. He looked in the direction of the sound. Su, is it a beast? A moon slayer's replied. No, the sound is not right. I have never heard such a sound before. However, it is very familiar, very familiar. It is an unforgettable familiarity. Su could not help but recall another peculiar sound, Wuxia. It was the sound of Big Rid, who was next to Seiki. According to legend, the ancestor had fought side by side with Big Rid and killed the moon. Wuxia was different from Roar and Roar. However, the nobility and majesty contained in it were the same, giving him a feeling of submission from the bottom of his heart. He looked at the dark blue sky, nervously anticipating something. Suddenly, two small black dots appeared in the sky. The small black dots grew larger and larger until they eventually turned into two black silhouettes. Su's heart fiercely trembled at the sight of these two silhouettes. His breathing quickened, and he nearly suffocated. Yes, it's Big Rid. Big Rid? The moon slayers in the wooden house turned pale with fright. They did not see Seth and his buddy Big Lizard, because when the Firebird was unleashed, they fainted immediately. Only later did they learn that Seth had killed the previous listener, and a large number of ancient sorcerers supported Su and laid down a rule that forbade harming sprites. If they were not allowed to harm sprite worms, they would not be able to produce magic power dust. This made many youngsters who wanted to become ancient sorcerers complain. However, Su strictly enforced this rule. Previously, when clansmen secretly killed sprite worms, Su discovered them and skinned them. Since then, no one dared to disobey. Su also said that the ancient sorcerers could not protect the tribe, and that Seth would send them a new cultivation method, Knight. Because Seth was a great knight, a knight riding Big Rid. More than half a year passed, yet Seth did not return, nor did he obtain the knight cultivation method. Many youngsters questioned Su behind his back. However, Su was full of confidence. He had experienced Seiki's greatness and knew what Seiki meant to the sacred tribe. He was also willing to believe that Seiki would return. At that time, the sacred tribe would walk out of the forest and return to the great civilization of their ancestors. Big Rid, there are two Big Rid. It's Seiki. Seiki is back. Su shouted loudly. He ran out of the house and quickly summoned all the ancient sorcerers of the tribe before running towards the altar of the 6 statues. When they reached the altar, the two Big Rid, wrapped in boundless dragon's might, landed on the altar. Different from the flowing, crystal-like Big Rid in Su's memory, the Big Rid this time had a head of light green gem and a head of brilliant gold. Their color, build, and posture were different, but what remained the same was the surging and suffocating dragon's might. Roar! Roar! The two Big Rid roared once more. After swearing their authority, they slowly retracted their dragon's might. Then, a knight jumped down from the back of the golden Big Rid. Tall, straight, handsome, mighty, noble, and unbearable. It was the Seiki in Su's memory. He immediately knelt down on the ground in excitement and shouted, Seiji, Big Lizard. Chapter 9:17. After systematic learning, List had already mastered the basic communication ability of the Moon language. After intimidating the Moon Killer tribe, he had listener Su and the ancient mage stay. Su, I am here to fulfill my promise to the holy tribe. Since you are sincerely following me, I will naturally not let the holy tribe decline. I will send orders of chivalry to the holy tribe to teach you a brand new night cultivation system to replace the declining magic system. Su is still a little unconvinced. Seiji, is magic really declining? The weave is declining. How do you think a mage like you can reach the level of strength I have now? List coldly snorted, very dissatisfied with Su's questioning. His words in the territory had never been questioned by his followers. It was just that these natives were not smart. How dare Su compare to Seiji? It's just Seiji. Can Su also become a knight? You can't. You ancient mages are destined to be eliminated by the times. From now on, select outstanding young people. They are the seeds to receive the knight's teachings. Under my rule, the holy tribe will have a beautiful future instead of being chased by wild beasts in the forest. When the knight came to teach, those outstanding moon-killer children would learn the wind language and serpentine and be instilled with the concept of loyalty and patriotism. When this batch of moon-killer knight grew up, the assimilation would also be completed. At that time, the moon-killer knight, who had a sense of superiority, would definitely be more ruthless than the flame people in oppressing the ordinary moon-killer tribe. Facts proved that the banana people were often more ruthless to their fellow countrymen. During World War II, the German soldiers who joined the U.S. fought the Germans to the death, and the Japanese who joined the U.S. fought the Japanese to the death, not to mention the Chinese who joined the U.S. This was human nature. When strangers were rich, they would not be jealous, but when Wang Guden, who grew up playing with them, became rich, he would definitely go crazy with jealousy. Moreover, if they did not belittle and beat their fellow countrymen to death, how could they prove that their behavior of flattering foreigners was correct? It cannot be said that everyone was like this, but most people were definitely like this. Su felt wronged by List's straightforward words. He didn't want to be eliminated. He still wanted to be a listener until he died of old age. However, List had been in a high position for many years and had already trained a pair of eyes that could see through people's hearts. Su, how many children do you have? Su has 2 children, a boy and a girl. The boy is already 15 years old and is currently learning magic. The girl is 12 years old and is learning to work with the women. The boy is 15 years old. It's not too late for him to start night training. I'll have people take good care of him. In the future, he will become a noble of the Fire Kingdom, with his own land and servants. When the girl is 12 years old, let her go to a girls' school in Fireforge City to study and marry a noble in the future. As Liz spoke, he looked at the other ancient sorcerers with anticipation in their eyes. The same goes for all of you. Your children will become Knight of the Fire Kingdom in the future. Remember, as long as you are loyal to me, you will all have a beautiful future. Su and the other ancient magi immediately expressed their loyalty. After a round of flattery, List raised his hand to signal everyone to stop and stop flattering him. These natives who lack vocabulary could only repeat common knowledge, such as great, Seiki, handsome, and so on. They had no creativity. I will give you a beautiful future, but I will also give you 2 tasks. Lord Seiki, please speak. Big Rid, Marta the Mountain Dragon, will stay in the Holy Tribe. You will be in charge of its food. It represents my dignity. Its vision is my vision. Everything in the Holy Tribe will happen in my eyes. Do you understand? Marta didn't have high requirements for the dragon nest. It was just too lazy to move and liked to find people to bring it food. Therefore, staying in the Holy Tribe was a good choice. Firstly, it could block the news of the mountain dragon. Secondly, it could suppress the Holy Tribe and make it easier for him to extend his authority. Understood, Lord Seiki. Not only did Su and the other ancient magi not complain, but they were also excited to the point of suffocation. They unexpectedly had the opportunity to come into contact with Big Rid, who had fought side by side with their ancestor. They even provided Big Rid with food. This feeling was too great. With a faint smile, List continued, "For the second task, I will dispatch orders of chivalry. You will need to cooperate with the orders of chivalry and incorporate the nearby Moon Killer tribes. In addition, spread the ban on elves. All the elves found must be strictly protected." Ah, Lord Seiki, I am afraid that the surrounding tribes will not obey the orders of the holy tribe. If they do not obey the orders, then invite their listeners and ancient magi to the holy tribe as guests and let them see Big Rid. You do not need to worry about this. My knight will faithfully carry out my orders. You just need to listen to the knight's arrangements. After explaining, List enjoyed several kinds of delicious fruits that the holy tribe had offered as tribute. Then, he sent over the sprite worms that the holy tribe had found in the past half a year. There were a total of 7 sprite worms. They were a very rare species, but of little value. However, List still contracted with the 7 sprite worms. After putting away the sprite worms, he said goodbye to Marta. You will stay here. I will send someone to take care of you. You will have all kinds of magic ingredients, jades, and delicacies. What you need to do is to choose a place nearby to produce orichalcum, or, when I have time, I will build a dragon nest for you. Roar! The orichalcum dragon nodded cheerfully. It felt very happy that it could not see List. This was probably the drawback of using the enchanting dragon soul fruit to ride a dragon. The dragon had some complaints about List as a knight. Over time, they needed to slowly get to know each other and finally leave a soul brand. He waved his hand. Following the call of the moon killer, List mounted the light emerald dragoness and continued eastward. When he passed by Jade City near the Flame Mountain Range, he came down to inspect the construction work. He found that the progress here was very rapid. As more and more flame people arrived, the construction of several cities suddenly accelerated. Commercial trade gradually developed, and many of the Flame Island specialties began to be transported out, turning them into economic value. After a simple night's rest in Jade City, List set off again the next morning. First, he went to Dragon Valley City to inspect the mining work of the metal mines and the extent of the excavation of the large pits. After leaving Jade City, he went to Fire City. With the opening of the teleportation array, Fire City's status had dropped sharply. It had been replanned as an agricultural city, and a large number of plantations had been opened up here. After inspecting Fire City, List returned to Reed City. After a short rest, he changed into the invisible dragon Bard and traveled through space directly to Black Horse Island. Because at this time, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom's emissary group finally arrived, along with the Blast Furnace Kingdom's emissary group. The Blast Furnace Kingdom's emissary group rode 3 huge mid-level dragons, levitating giant rays. This mid-level wind attribute dragon looked like a flying saucer with a tail. It was a bit similar to the rays on Earth, with a flat, round body, a diameter of more than 10 meters, relying entirely on wind magic to fly. It flew very fast and had good endurance. This was the mid-level dragon bred by the Blast Furnace Kingdom's royal family. It was very weak in combat, but as a means of transportation, it was better than an airplane. Therefore, the Blast Furnace Kingdom's emissary group could quickly cross tens of thousands of kilometers and arrive at Black Horse Island at the same time as the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom's emissary group. Chapter 918. Mashu Red White Rose, head of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom delegation, pays respect to your Royal Highness the Dragon Knight. Bruce Silverhand, head of the Blast Furnace Kingdom delegation, pays respect to your Royal Highness the Dragon Knight. In a reception hall of Thorn Castle, List met the heads of the delegation of the 2 countries, a young and handsome knight and an elegant middle-aged knight. He smiled and gestured. You don't have to be so polite. Please take a seat. Thank you, your Royal Highness. Mashu was born in the Red-White Rose family, which had a prominent position in the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. Bruce was born in the Silver Hand family, which was a member of the Duke family without a dragon. It was a branch of the Blast Furnace Kingdom's Golden Crown family, similar to the relationship between the Blue Blood Alliance and the Sapphire family. By sending such distinguished envoys, it was obvious that the Blast Furnace Kingdom and the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom attached great importance to List or to the invisible dragon Bard, the little fire dragon Leo, the light emerald dragon Issen, the gray iron dragon Orn, and the archmage He behind him. Before formally discussing the intentions of the delegation, The envoys of the two countries presented the gifts first. The king of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom sent a batch of food, metal resources, and a few glittering golden wool. This was the wool of the Earth's super dragon beast Golden Goat, which was of the same importance as the phoenix feather of the flame dragon bird. Strictly speaking, this batch of gifts was similar to the gifts brought by the previous delegation. The Blast Furnace Kingdom did not bring food, metal, and other resources because they came on a giant ray and could not carry too many things. But the king's gift was a batch of magic books, which not only contained some strange casting methods, magic arrays, but also several magic books written by archmages. The value of the gifts was quite high, especially for a Chi, as an archmage who could make full use of the magic books. Thank you for the gifts of King Osborne and King Helder. It's getting late. Why don't you take a seat and have a drink first, and then hand in the official envoy documents in the afternoon, as your Royal Highness commands. The luncheon dishes were very rich, making the envoys of the two countries eat happily. However, List was not very satisfied. Mrs. Abby's team of chefs had already left for Fireforge City. The team of chefs that remained in Thorncastle were her apprentices, so their skills were a bit worse. As they toasted each other, there was naturally a round of flattery. In particular, Mashu Red White Rose showed great enthusiasm for List, which made him involuntarily think that she might want to marry her sister to him. However, List didn't like this kind of blind marriage, so he chose to go through with it perfunctorily. When the banquet was over, Roland wanted to take a nap, but Mashu came to him again. Your Royal Highness, the gift from the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom has been presented, but the gift from the Red and White Rose family has not yet been given to your Royal Highness. Please allow me to give them to your Royal Highness personally. The Red and White Rose family also prepared a gift for me. List pretended to be surprised. He already knew that the Red and White Rose family was rich. As expected, they were prepared to throw money at him. Thinking about it, List felt a little excited. Mashu smiled proudly. My parents appreciate His Royal Highness very much, and my sister admires His Royal Highness very much. I drank with His Royal Highness, and I admire His Royal Highness very much. Therefore, the family intends to befriend your Highness. A mere gift is just a small token of our appreciation, not worth mentioning. Immediately, the retainer knight of the Red and White Rose family came with a batch of gifts. Every time he brought a gift, a knight would shout out the name of the gift. 20 rubies, 30 gems of the other 11 colors, 1 ton each of mithril, orichalcum, and adamantine, 3 pairs of low-level dragon hounds, 20 puppies, fire abandoned worm grass, red pen ghost, dark abandoned worm grass, black tiger paw spores, nourishment, and 20 farming serfs. Every time the name of a gift was read out, List couldn't help but feel his heart beat. The value of 50 gems was more than tens of thousands of gold coins, and 3 tons of magic metal was nearly 100,000 gold coins. The ability of the low-level dragon hounds was unknown, but the value of the dragon that could reproduce was definitely not low. The value of the abandoned worm grass was average, but there were abandoned worm grass with dark attributes. Light and dark attributes were rare attributes, and the corresponding potions were very expensive. Therefore, the value of the black tiger paw was huge, definitely more than tens of thousands of gold coins. Without waiting for List to recover, another knight came over with a large box and shouted, 1,000 platinum potions. Hearing this gift, List's eyebrows quickly flew up. The platinum potion was made from the White Rose, one of the origins of the Red and White Rose family. It was known as the potion with the best amplification effect. Many great aristocratic families were willing to spend countless gold coins to buy platinum potions for their children to use. The best adjective was the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom Dragon Knight Reserve Plan designated to use the potion. It was said that the price of a platinum potion in the Iron and Steel Ridge was 500 gold coins, and the value of 1,000 platinum potions was 500,000 gold coins. Just as he was shocked by the platinum potion, a knight held another large box and handed it to Mashu. Mashu personally shouted out the name of the gift, 200 red dragon potions. Red dragon potions. List suddenly stood up and could no longer maintain his calm image. He swallowed hard and said, Mashu, the red and white rose family actually took out red dragon potions as a gift. Red dragon potions were made from the red and white rose family's red and white rose family. The magic amplification effect on the dragon was terrifying because it could also increase the dragon's supreme magic. It was a strategic material. Basically, red dragon potions were purchased by the Iron and Steel Ridge royal family. Occasionally, one or two were released, and the price was calculated in dragon coins. One dragon coin was equivalent to 10,000 gold coins. Red dragon potions were always priceless. Your Royal Highness, the red and white rose family is even richer than the platinum family. These gifts are worth nearly 5 million gold coins, but it is just a friendly gesture from the family to your Royal Highness. Mashu handed the box to the castle servant who didn't know what red dragon potions were. Seeing the shocked expression on List's face, he was very proud. Perhaps his own talent was not so good. As a member of the Dragon Knight Reserve Plan, riding a dragon was still far away, but he had his own confidence and strength. There was no other reason. The family was rich. They were used to throwing money at things they couldn't handle. In the past, the Grand Duke of Rose used money to knock out the princess of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, and then used money and family to knock out the king, and kept the status of the Red and White Rose family. Therefore, the son of the Red and White Rose family liked to do the most and was best at throwing money at people. The Red and White Rose family is willing to cultivate a closer friendship with the Flame family. With the wealth of the Red and White Rose family and the strength of the Flame family, this friendship will inevitably bloom bright light. Indeed, the wealth of the Red and White Rose family is amazing. List let out a breath. He had to admit that he was almost knocked out by the other party's money. Chapter 919. Are you satisfied with the gift from the Rose and White family? To answer this question, List responded enthusiastically, I am very satisfied. I will accept the friendship of the Rose and White family. List was certainly willing to make friends with such rich and generous friends. Receiving gifts was enough to make a fortune. The value of the gift from the Rose and White family was more than the annual output of the Flame Kingdom. It was unknown how much white paper, sea salt, and glass they had to sell in order to get a huge wealth of nearly 5 million gold coins. An ordinary marquis family couldn't get that much money even if they sold everything they had. So the two chatted enthusiastically for a full hour. Finally, List personally sent Mashu out of the castle gate, as if they were old friends who hadn't seen each other for many years. Your Royal Highness, please stop. Mashu will go back to the embassy and have a rest. See you in the afternoon. List took Mashu's hand and shook it. Well, Mashu, go and have a rest first. You will hand over the diplomatic documents in the afternoon, and I will drink with you in the evening. Well, don't go home until you are drunk. When Mashu left, he looked at the gray iron dragon not far away from the Castle of Thorns. There was both pride and a sense of superiority in his heart. Although I was blessed by the glory of the night, my talent crushed all the young people in the 3 kingdoms, and I was able to ride 4 dragons. But in the end, he's still a poor country boy with a shabby appearance. He's already blinded by this little bit of wealth. Scratching a strand of hair at the corner of his eyebrows, Sui Xiong thought comfortably, but this feeling is not bad. My ancestors bought the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom with money, and now I'm buying the future Fire Kingdom with money. Doesn't this mean that the Red and White Rose family is secretly controlling the 2 kingdoms? The more he thought about it, the happier he was. So high. He felt that his life had reached its climax. He felt that his life had reached its peak. At the same time, in the study of the Castle of Thorns, List and his father Lee William were touching a large number of priceless gifts. As expected of the Red and White Rose family, this wealth and courage almost made me lose my composure. List picked up the teacup and gulped down a mouthful of tea to calm himself down. Gems, magical metals, low-level dragons, and bug forage. Each of these 4 gifts was extravagant. However, the most extravagant gift was the 2 boxes filled with potions. There were 1,000 platinum potions and 200 red dragon potions. These were the two famous potions of the red and white rose family. They were worth millions of gold coins. If it were List, he wouldn't have given out so many valuable gifts. It was too extravagant. William took a deep breath to calm himself down. The red and white rose family is really generous. I've been through a lot, but I've never seen a gift like this. I feel like the hard work of a mid-level noble family for several generations can't even compare to a casual gift from these dragon-raising families. The Tulip family would never be able to come up with so much wealth. In fact, they would have to sell off their businesses to come up with a tenth of their wealth. Father, there is a huge gap between the dragon-rearing families. Not every dragon-rearing family has the platinum potion and red dragon water. Besides, the gifts from King Osborne and King Helder are very common. The gift from the red and white rose family is different. That's right. Free food is more expensive than delicacies. The Grand Duchy of Rose is far away in the north of the Steel Ridge. It's hard to communicate with them. Why did Ma Shu send such a valuable gift? William didn't know much about the red and white rose family. He only heard that they were famous for their wealth. List took out a platinum potion and cast Eye of Magic. He carefully looked at the rich chaos magic in it and said, "Father, have you heard of the Steel Pearl, the most beautiful woman in the north?" "No." Marilyn Red-White Rose, Ma Shu's sister, daughter of Grand Duke Rose, niece of King Osborne. She's 15 years old and unmarried. Although Ma Shu didn't say it clearly, she hinted that he has a beautiful sister. If he marries her, he will get the support of the red and white rose family. The red and white rose family wants to marry you? William's breathing became rapid. Then what do you think? Do you have any plans to marry them? List put down the platinum potion in his hand. He had regained his usual calmness. Father, do you think I should marry them? William wanted to say, what are you hesitating for? Marry such a rich wife as soon as possible. However, he suddenly remembered that he had a daughter, a Chi-Roy's truth. On one side, there was endless wealth, and on the other side, there was endless magic. It was really difficult to choose. If I can marry the daughter of the red and white rose family, it will be a very good choice. Of course, a Chi is also a good girl that I can't let go of. You are the patriarch of the Flame family and the king of the Flame Kingdom. Marriage is up to you. I won't interfere. A Chi represented strength, and Marilyn represented wealth. William didn't want to make it difficult for himself to make a choice for List. Besides, he also knew that he couldn't make the decision for List. Not to mention that his second son had already separated from the family. Even if he hadn't, he wouldn't be able to change List's mind. However, he still said with a hint of worry on his face, List, there is one thing I hope you can think about. Once you become a king, you have to be responsible for all the people in the kingdom. And the most important duty of a king is to give birth to an heir for the kingdom to ensure the smooth continuation of the throne. He often saw a Chi, so how could he not know that a Chi was a siren? Therefore, in his heart, he hoped to persuade List. This also meant that when it came to the choice between a Chi and Marilyn, he hoped that List would choose Marilyn. Although he hadn't seen Marilyn in person, the wealth of the red and white rose family had successfully knocked him out. List didn't immediately answer. He closed the 2 boxes of magic potions and put them into his space ring. He also put away the gems and magic metals. The officials would arrange for serfs to plant the red ghost pen and black tiger paw. The falconry dog would also be given to special breeders to raise. After finishing these things, he asked faintly, Father, what do you think is the greatest power in the world? William asked curiously, what is it? It's the dragon. Without beating around the bush, Liz said directly, with the dragon, you have everything. Because the dragon represents power, wealth cannot represent power. The red and white rose family seems to have the wealth to crush the iron and steel ridge royal family, but they are still rootless trees. To put it bluntly, they're just puppets manipulated by the iron and steel ridge royal family. Ma Shu, the heir of the Grand Duchess of Rose, was noble and glittering. However, List had long seen through her. The weakness of the red and white rose family was that their strength and wealth did not match. If he was just a poor boy, he would inevitably be overwhelmed by money. However, he was a dragon knight with 5 dragons. It was too easy for him to get rich. Just like this time, the Red and White Rose family came all the way to send money. The reason why the Red and White Rose family wants to unite by marriage is very simple. They have money, but they don't have a dragon to protect this money, so they hope to have a new backer, which is me. However, it is worth discussing whether the Iron and Steel Ridge royal family is really willing to share the wealth of the Red and White Rose family with me. William frowned and thought. List gave the answer directly. Mashu is the heir of the Red and White Rose family, but Marilyn is not. As long as the Iron and Steel Ridge royal family holds Mashu, it is equivalent to holding the purse of the Red and White Rose family, and also holding the wealth that I can get. So, Mashu as the leader of the emissary group, and the Red and White Rose family's attempt to unite by marriage are all manipulated by the Iron and Steel Ridge royal family? Who knows? Maybe Osborne wants to use Marilyn to trap me. Or maybe the Grand Duchess of Rose is eager to get rid of the shackles of the Platinum family. But these are not important. The important thing is that I have a dragon. Father, you may not know, but I recently rode a dragon. William stared at him. Rode a dragon. Chapter 9:20. Back in his room to rest, Lee Williams' mind was still buzzing from List's last words. I recently rode a dragon. Although I have no money, I have dragons. I have 5 dragons. Their money is ultimately my money. These words continued to hover in his mind, making him inexplicably sigh with emotion. That makes sense. I have nothing to say. Facing the wealth of the Red-White Rose family, he had little ability to resist, but he also knew that what List said was right. Controlling dragons was the basis for controlling wealth. The reason why the dragon-raising family was a top aristocratic family was that the dragons raised by the family could suppress a country. Despite knowing this, he still couldn't help but think, what a pity. The same thought also came to List himself. He saw through everything and understood the nature of strength and wealth, but everyone could understand the truth, but it was very difficult to really cut it off. There were 5 dragons in the Fire Kingdom, and the wealth needed to feed them was huge. The wealth of the Red-White Rose family could completely fill the void during the growth period. What a pity. The knight system is monogamous. Aristocrats can have countless lovers, but they can't have 2 wives. Otherwise, I could be like the ancient emperors of China and take Marilyn as an imperial concubine, regardless of whether she was open or not, as long as she brought me money. His biggest misgivings about aristocratic young ladies was that the aristocratic atmosphere was open, and women had experienced who knows how many carnivals before marriage. Other aristocrats might not care, but List cared quite a lot. However, life was constantly growing in compromise. His cousin Meopal married Angela Sapphire, who had an abortion. They lived a happy life, and their son was born. According to the Taro family's secret magic identification, the child's bloodline was indeed inherited from the Taro family, and there was no possibility of a fraudulent substitution. But I can't let a chi down in this life. It seems that if I want to get the wealth of the Red-White Rose family, I have to use other methods. Money can make people jealous. Mashu Red-White Rose, who was indulging in the peak of her life, didn't know that her bold action of smashing people with money had indeed knocked people unconscious, but the reaction after being knocked unconscious was completely different. He rested for a while at the embassy. In the afternoon, he happily participated in the exchange of diplomatic documents and chatted merrily with List at the banquet. List also treated him differently than the other emissaries. They were just short of becoming sworn brothers. This made the envoy of the Blast Furnace Kingdom and the negotiator of the Eagle Kingdom very jealous. In their eyes, this meant that List would side with the Steel Ridge Kingdom at any time. Once List sided with the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, the power structure in the northeast of the legendary continent would be broken. The strength of the Eagle Kingdom, which had lost a dragon in succession, was declining. It could only unite with the Blast Furnace Kingdom to fight against the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. However, with the addition of the Fire Kingdom, the strength of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom was bound to expand. Therefore, the envoys of the Blast Furnace Fort began to try their best to win over List, and the negotiation team of the Eagle no longer haggled over every ounce. After accompanying Ma Shu around Black Horse Island, List left Black Horse Island on the pretext that he had something to deal with and handed over the negotiations to his father, Li William. Li William took the opportunity to make a request. The Fire Kingdom is about to be established. We hope that the three kingdoms can immediately recognize the status of the Fire Kingdom. Ma Shu quickly responded, "Don't worry, Marquis Oxdale, the Iron and Steel Ridge royal family has recognized the establishment of the Fire Kingdom. As long as the Fire Kingdom is established, formal diplomatic relations will be established immediately. Thank you for your recognition, His Majesty Osborne. At the same time, we also hope to promote friendship with the Red and White Rose family. I feel very close to His Highness List. I believe that this friendship will bloom brightly." Li William smiled brightly. List also said that he and Her Highness Ma Shu hit it off at first sight. Ma Shu was the heir of the Grand Duchy, so she could be called Her Highness. In the face of the strong attitude of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, Bruce Silverhand thought for a moment and quickly responded, "I carry the attitude of His Majesty Helder. The royal family of Blast Furnace Castle will not oppose the establishment of the Fire Kingdom and is willing to establish formal diplomatic relations. I hope that the two countries can trade with each other and communicate with each other. This is natural. The Fire Kingdom has a strong maritime trade power. Even if the Blast Furnace Fort is far away, they can still exchange and trade with each other. In this way, the attitude of the Iron and Blast Furnace Fort has been clear. Only the negotiation team of the Eagle Kingdom has not given a clear attitude. Seeing this, Li William secretly communicated with List, and his attitude gradually became tough. Commander Alexander, if you can't represent the attitude of the Eagle royal family, then please go back." "Marquis Oxdale, what do you mean?" Alexander White Iron's face was a little ugly. "As the special envoy of the king, I naturally have a right to represent the attitude of the Eagle royal family. In this case, I will say it directly. His Highness the Dragon Knight is very angry with the Eagle Kingdom for not being able to reach a ransom agreement and not being willing to express their position to the Fire Kingdom. If the Eagle Kingdom still has the same attitude, then there's no need to talk anymore. We can just wait for the new dragon-slaying war. Does His Highness List want to start a new dragon-slaying war? Does he really think that the Eagle Kingdom is easy to bully? You can try. Anyway, the Fire Kingdom is poor and has nothing to worry about. If the Eagle Kingdom is willing to be the enemy, then we can only choose to deal with it by means of revenge. You are threatening us," Li William said in surprise. "It is a threat. Don't you understand this after living here for so many days?" Alexander's face suddenly turned red, but he could not force out any tough words for a long time. After all, the Eagle Kingdom had been defeated twice in the dragon-slaying war. The Dragon Knight was killed, and the dragon was lost. It was really impossible to be tough. Now that the Iron and Blast Furnace Fort had recognized the Fire Kingdom, the Eagle Kingdom might really have to bear the third dragon-slaying war if they did not compromise. Once the Iron and Steel Ridge helped the Fire Kingdom to contain the Blast Furnace Fort, the Eagle Kingdom was very likely to suffer from List's revenge. Although the kingdom still had a few Dragon Knight and dragons, they needed to suppress the restless borders. Otherwise, the duchies and even the big families living in the cracks would not mind taking the opportunity to plunder the Eagle Kingdom. Even if another Dragon Knight died, it was very likely that the kingdom would have to cede territory and beg for mercy. So in desperation, Alexander could only take a step back. He exposed the bottom line of the Eagle Kingdom. The Eagle Kingdom can recognize the Fire Kingdom and is willing to pay a grain-type dragon elf less than 200 years old to redeem Duke Piero. At the same time, we will not interfere in the succession of the Duchy of Grey Iron, but the two countries must sign a friendship agreement and no more dragon-level wars. If you had decided this earlier, why waste so much time talking? Commander Alexander, the Dragon Knight Royal Highness, is a peace-loving knight of justice. We only want to develop on the sea safely and steadily. The sea belongs to the Fire Kingdom. I hope the Eagle Kingdom will not cross the line next time. In the end, the negotiation results were officially signed. At the same time, the three kingdoms also announced their statements. The content was very simple. The three kingdoms all recognized the establishment of the Fire Kingdom and officially established diplomatic relations with the Fire Kingdom. There were no details, no legal restrictions, and no division of power. The statement only said that another kingdom-level player had joined the night game. As for the game rules, content, and results, it was up to the Fire Kingdom to fight for it. When a statement was announced, List returned to the Thorn Fort and received the envoys of the three kingdoms again as the king. He sat on a high seat and looked at the envoys calmly. The head of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom's envoys, Matthew Red White Rose, greets the Fire Kingdom's king. The head of the Blast Furnace Kingdom's envoys, Bruce Silverhand, greets the Fire Kingdom's king. The head of the Eagle Kingdom's envoys, Alexander White Iron, greets the Fire Kingdom's king. Chapter 921. The statement was released, and the Kingdom of Fire was confirmed. The three emissaries began to bid farewell one after another. Mashu Rose Rosette did not stay any longer, although he wanted to deepen his relationship with List. But as an emissary, he must convey the signed agreement to the king of the Iron and Steel Ridge as soon as possible. Of course, he still delayed for a day and chose to leave after the Blast Furnace Castle emissary and the Eagle negotiation group left. Before leaving, he once again chatted with List alone in the study. Finally, he took out a small box from his pocket and handed it to List. List was a little puzzled. Why did he start giving gifts for no reason? Mashu explained with a smile, "My sister Marilyn admires your Royal Highness very much. She also admires your Royal Highness's Archmage Achilles. So, she asked me to give you and Achilles a gift. It is said to be a gift from the sea." When the box was opened, two fish-scale-shaped earrings shone with a blue brilliance. Without the magic eye, List could feel the abundant water magic contained in it. This was definitely a very rare and precious magic item. List took the box and looked at it carefully. The more he looked at it, the more he felt the gift was very precious. Is this a gift from the sea? Yes, it is called the Mermaid's Protection. It was a gift from a court magician of the Iron and Steel Ridge royal family when my sister was born. The great magician has passed away, but he left a story about this pair of earrings. It was unearthed from a relic in the sea. Relic in the sea? What kind of relic in the sea? It is a strange palace. It may have been built by some intelligent race in the sea in ancient times. However, among the many intelligent races in ancient times, only human beings were able to reproduce. Those non-human intelligent races have rarely appeared in front of the world. Mashu smiled meaningfully. She was reminding List that she already knew Achi's siren identity. But List did not pay attention to her wording. Instead, he instantly thought of the Temple of Fish Clown, where the statues of Fish Clown, Naga, and the mermaid were enshrined. From the neck of the mermaid statue, he found the magical item, the tear of the mermaid. In the end, relying on the miraculous power of the mermaid's tears, Achi successfully came into contact with the weave and laid the foundation for her advancement to Magic Shooter. If this pair of mermaid's guard earrings had the same mystical power as the mermaid's tears, wouldn't it mean that it could help a great mage come into contact with the weave for a short period of time, ultimately advancing to become a high mage? Moreover, there were two earrings. They didn't seem to be a whole. Perhaps they could help the two archmages advance. Thinking of this, he naturally put the box away. Since it's a gift from Miss Marilyn, I gladly accept it. I think my sister, Achi, will like it. It's good that His Excellency Achilles likes it. Mashu smiled brightly. Seeing that List accepted the gift without hesitation, he felt that List had clearly understood his intentions. Otherwise, he would have been at a loss and hesitating for a moment. In that case, Mashu left Black Horse Island with satisfaction. Almost as soon as Mashu left, List followed. He rode the invisible dragon bard to Reed City and gave the mermaids protection to Achi. Achi, come and look at this pair of earrings. Hey, brother, this pair of earrings gives Achi a familiar feeling. She was surprised when she took the earrings. Achi remembers the magical aura they exude is the same as the mermaid's tears that Achi used before. This is a special water attribute high magic, and it's probably the same material as the mermaid's tears. The same material? Do you think it's the material of the mermaid? Liz began to think. The mermaid's tears could be the tears of the mermaid. Looking at the shape of the mermaid's protection, it might be the scales of the mermaid. As for whether the mermaid was a real creature, he thought it was very likely because there were too many legends that had been confirmed again and again. Even creatures like the weave dragon existed, so why couldn't the mermaid exist? I don't know, but the raw material with such magic power must be a very special existence. Achi also hopes it's really a mermaid. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful the mermaid is, it has declined. The most beloved spirit of the sea is only the siren. The sea loves Achi the most. Achi giggled in agreement, and then said, although this mermaid's protection is very magical, it won't be of much help to Achi. At most, I'll be able to study its properties. Brother, you can use it to train new magic shooters. Achi also felt that the mermaid's protection could be like the mermaid's tears, helping magicians to contact the weave. There's no need. List picked up the earrings and put the two scale-shaped azure earrings on Achi's earlobes. This is a gift from a dragon-rearing family in a small country to please me. It looks very beautiful, so I accepted it. It suits you very well. Achi waved her hand and condensed a mirror made of water. Does it look good, brother? Very good. After giving the mermaid's protection to Achi, List didn't do anything else in the enchanting atmosphere. He quickly left Reed City and flew in the direction of Dragon Valley City. There was something very magical waiting for him to witness, the reward of the Smoke Mission. When the three big kingdoms recognized the Fire Kingdom, the Smoke Mission was also completed. Originally, the mission reward was Dragon's Aura in the Bones. However, after the mission was completed, the reward clearly pointed out what Dragon's Aura in the Bones was. Mission completed. Reward: a bone dragon. Bone dragon. The dragon's might in the bones was the dragon's might emitted by the bone dragon. And it just so happened that the official in charge of the mining in Dragon Valley City sent a message through the magic platform. They found many huge bones in the mines, possibly the bones of dragons. Dragon bones, bone dragon, dragon pit mines, man-eating tree dragon spirits. A series of clues connected in his mind, allowing him to see a clear logic. In ancient times, 5 metal dragons fought here, and the dragon blood formed the 5 types of metal ores. Some of the dragons died, and that's why there are dragon bones in the metal ores. Metal dragons couldn't be resurrected like elemental dragons, but they were dragons after all, magical and incredible. So these bones combined and underwent some unknown change, reviving into a bone dragon. And the man-eating tree dragon spirit, Carly, felt the aura of the bone dragon and slowly evolved into a dragon spirit. What kind of dragon is a bone dragon? Why have I never heard of this kind of dragon? And Carly never mentioned it. The relationship between Carly and List had improved, and they gradually became closer. They talked about how it grew up. It was hard to describe. The little elf's memory before was muddled, and the big elf's memory was also vague. Most of it was the memory of monotonous life in the Dragon Pit Valley. It was just an ordinary man-eating tree. It grew up in a muddle, and then became enemies with the Moon Killer and began to think of ways to take revenge on the Moon Killer. It had never seen a bone dragon, let alone touched any dragon bones. It only knew that there was an aura in the Dragon Pit Valley that it liked. After it evolved into a dragon spirit, it no longer had a special preference for that aura. Your Highness, these are the bones excavated from the mine. They have the aura of a dragon, and should be the remains of a metal dragon. We are still excavating, and the deeper we go, the more dragon bones we will find. The person in charge of the mine was the Iron Knight, Earl Bellows. He was very experienced in mining. List looked at the rotten, broken dragon bones and felt the faint aura of a dragon. His eyes flickered. He was sure that if he dug deeper into the mine, he would dig out the bone dragon that was the reward of the smoke mission. He just didn't know what form the bone dragon existed in. A living creature? A dead thing? Chapter 922. Nickel. Tell everyone to be on guard. The person behind these dragon bones is not simple. List did not know what kind of creature the bone dragon was, but this did not prevent him from excavating the bone dragon. When the time came, he would know whether the bone dragon was dead or alive. Of course, a certain degree of vigilance was necessary. After all, for the time being, it was not easy to determine how strong the bone dragon would be if it was alive. But no matter how strong it was only a dragon. Behind List stood the invisible dragon bard, a divine dragon that mastered the power of space. Dig down along the location of the dragon bones. After giving the order, List began to carefully examine the pile of dragon bones that had been dug out. He opened his eye of magic and could see the light of mana feedback attached to the dragon bones. It had already turned into a chaotic color, and it was not clear what kind of dragon these bones belonged to. He rode on the invisible dragon bard, circled around the pit where the dragon bones were excavated, and found a very strange phenomenon. It was not that there were metal mines in the original pit on the ground, but the entire dragon pit had metal mines. And the dragon bones were found at the junction of several metal mines. The black iron mine in the east, the bronze mine in the south, the mercury mine in the west, and the galena mine in the north. The dragon bones happened to be found at the junction of these 4 metal mines. Strange. Outside the valley, there was also a large titanium mine. There were some vague guesses in his mind, but none of them formed a good idea, so he could only put them aside for now. Then he called out the smoke mission. Mission. Talent is like the golden sand in the water. It needs to be constantly fished and washed in order to find the precious golden sand from a mud. So talented people need to be constantly washed to finally determine their future. Please organize the Dragon Knight plan. Reward: a big elf. The reward of the new mission was a big elf, but Liz could not guess how the big elf would appear. At present, none of the little elves in the castle had abnormal conditions, so the possibility of evolution was not high. As for the elves in the wild, with the continuous expansion of the territory and the continuous recruitment of the Moonslayers, the number of elves was also increasing, but there were very few little elves and even fewer big elves. Fortunately, he did not care so much about 1 or 2 elves now. He just had to focus on the mission itself. Because I've been feeling that there aren't enough talents recently, the smoke mission has begun to change the fate of the young geniuses according to my ideas. For this mission, List had a clear understanding in his heart. It was stimulated by his own constant hints. From the looks of it, this was a quest that required a long period of time to be effective. The power of fate might not be able to find a qualified genius among the many children in the Fire Kingdom. That was why the Dragon Knight plan was needed to pave the way for the fate of the young geniuses to be more easily plucked. Then, how should we implement the Dragon Knight plan? If we want to take a shortcut, we can just copy the Dragon Knight plan from the 3 kingdoms. The Dragon Knight selection plans of the 3 kingdoms were similar, which was to select talented knight candidates from the Dragon Knight class. 16 years old, which was the Sky Knight at adulthood, could be selected as a Dragon Knight candidate. These 16-year-old Sky Knights could be children of great nobles, or they could be orphans raised by great nobles. The nobles who sent Dragon Knight candidates to the royal family would be rewarded handsomely. Once a Dragon Knight candidate becomes a Dragon Knight, it would be rewarded to the nobles. That was why cultivating Dragon Knight candidates was a very profitable business. Many nobles whose children were not talented would choose orphans to cultivate in order to find talented Knight. Some small nobles who found good seedlings would not hesitate to cultivate them in exchange for the royal family's reward. This kind of selection method was not bad. At least it guaranteed the interests of the great nobles, while also providing fresh blood for the kingdom. However, the core noble class was fixed. Great nobles were great nobles. Commoners and even small nobles could not really rely on the Dragon Knight plan to become great nobles. The most important thing is that I don't even have many knight candidates. He felt a little awkward. Without knight, how could he rely on the knight class to send Dragon Knight candidates? That is why I still need to set up a school system, popularize knight training courses, and spread the net to increase the mobility of the classes. This method was not advisable in the old kingdoms. The great nobles would definitely resist it, but there would be no resistance in the Fire Kingdom. List was an autocratic king whose words carried enormous weight. No one dared to disobey his decree. Moreover, there was a huge vacancy in the noble class in the kingdom that needed to be filled. I'll have Gort and the others come up with an outline first. I'll revise it and start organizing the Dragon Knight plan. Not long after he stayed in Dragon Valley City, the metal mine began to change. The Moonkiller serfs who dug the mine didn't know what was underground. While they were digging, they suddenly felt a vibration coming from the bottom of the mine. Keep digging. I'll personally guard it. Don't be afraid. List rode the invisible dragon and stared at the mine. He could also feel the vibrations like steam hitting the lid of a pot. Under the supervision of the knight, although the serfs were worried about the vibration under their feet, they still took pickaxes, hammers, and other equipment and hammered the high-quality metal ore. 3 days later, the excavated metal ore was quickly transported to a nearby warehouse and piled up. The dragon bones were picked out and piled up nearby. List clearly felt that the chaos magic power of these dragon bones was much stronger than that of the dragon bones attached to the shallow mine, and the degree of decay was much less. It's not the dragon bones of a dragon. These two should be Forlum bones. The difference in size is more than double. He was not a biologist, but he had been in contact with dragons for a long time and had a clear understanding of the dragon's body proportions. Therefore, he was also very clear about the size of the dragon's bones. The size of the lead dragon and mercury dragon is unknown, but these two Forlum bones are quite consistent with the size of the bronze dragon and the black iron dragon. The fourth day, Achi also rushed over. As a magic shooter, Achi's research on dragons was more professional than List's. She could clearly distinguish many species among the dragon bones. Unfortunately, there was no information on the titanium dragon, lead dragon, and mercury dragon, so it was impossible to completely distinguish all the dragon bones. At this time, Liz suggested, Achi, can you try to put these dragon bones into their original shape? Achi can try. The next 2 days of digging out more dragon bones. Achi classified these dragon bones and put them together according to the size ratio of the dragon bones. But soon she found a strange phenomenon. Brother, look at these dragon bones. The dragon bones of each dragon are very clearly missing. This suspected bronze dragon is missing the sternum and half of the spine. This suspected black iron dragon is missing the wing bone and the tail bone. These 3 dragons are missing the Forlum bones, the hind limb bones, the skull, the neck bone, half of the spine, and the plate armor. Has this part of the bone not been unearthed yet? It doesn't look like it because the other parts of the dragon bones are also missing, but there will be some broken bones, but these missing parts don't even have broken bones. List nodded and said his speculation. The metal pit is shaking more and more, and the missing parts of the dragon bones can be combined into a new dragon. Achi, it is likely that there is a bone dragon formed from the remains of a metal dragon at the bottom of the dragon pit. What kind of existence do you think this bone dragon is? Brother, will there really be a bone dragon? Of course, I've already felt the dragon's might of the bone dragon and its exuberant vitality. It is at the bottom of the pit, waiting to be ridden. List said shamelessly. In fact, if it weren't for the smoke mission, he wouldn't have thought of such a thing as a bone dragon. Chapter 923. As they dug deeper, the location of the tremors became clearer, and the serfs continued to dig along with the tremors. Although they were terrified by the tremors, they were relieved to see List and Achi guarding the edge of the pit. After all, these two were the great Seiki. There was also the great Big Lies beside them. There is magic seeping up from the ground. This bone dragon is struggling. Its magic is very strange. It seems to be some kind of strange blue magic, but it is different from water and ice magic. List rode on the back of the invisible dragon bard and used the crystal white orbit to observe the characteristics of the magic on the ground. At this time, the metal or layer in the pit could no longer stand firmly, and the serfs evacuated. A group of ancient mages gathered together and bombarded the pit with spells. Together with the tremors, they bombarded the or layer with dense cracks. The steaming magic became denser and denser, and List finally figured out what this magic was. A chi. This magic is similar to that of a lich, and it is related to the soul. I have seen it on the Marquee Bull before. However, the blue magic emitted by this bone dragon is of a higher level. After the Marquee Bull transformed into a lich, the blue magic shrouded under his armor was still of a lower level. However, the blue magic leaking from the bone dragon was of a higher level. Maybe the bone dragon is also a special mutated creature related to the soul. Brother, a chief found no dragon teeth in all the dragon bones. According to the relevant records, the soul of a dragon is hidden in the dragon teeth. Maybe this bone dragon was formed by the soul of all the dragon teeth. That's possible. List immediately ordered the ancient mages. Continue bombarding, don't stop. The ancient mages consumed a lot of magic every time they cast a spell, but they did not dare to disobey Seiki's order. They could only muster up their energy to communicate with the magic and release the most powerful magic they could. Boom, boom, boom. The metal or in the pit was bombarded and splashed everywhere. The underground tremors also became more violent. Finally, after another round of concentrated magic fire, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the underground or layer. When the magic light dissipated, a fierce dragon might rushed out of the pit, and the ancient mages were the first to bear the brunt of the dragon might. And in List's crystal white trajectory, he clearly saw a bone claw made of blue magic power extending out of the fissure. Ancient sorcerers, retreat. He ordered the ancient sorcerers to retreat and exchanged a look with a chi. Both of them were fully alert. Creak, creak. The bone claw forcibly lifted up and grabbed onto the protruding part of the pit, forcefully dragging its body that was still buried underground. With an ear-piercing sound of friction, the crack became wider and wider. List did not interfere during the entire process, allowing the bone dragon to struggle and crawl out on its own. In a flash, a dragon head and wings stretched out. In addition to the slender bones on the wings, there was also cartilage stuck between the bones, which had many large holes like rags. There was no material connection between these bones, only a rich blue magic supporting the movement of the bones. It outlined a ferocious and mysterious image. The magic power on the dragon head was even more vigorous, and it had 4 dragon horns, 2 thick dragon horns that looked like bull horns, and 2 small dragon horns that looked like ram horns. The long and narrow dragon mouth bones were distributed with dragon teeth of different sizes. The magic light that bloomed from each dragon tooth was like a small sun, and when combined together, it was a bright ball of magic light. Roar! A strange dragon roar came from the mouth of the ancient dragon. Not only was there a hoarse sound like friction in the ears, but also a rhythm that seemed to ring in the hearts of the people. This ancient dragon had no eyes, only 2 blue flames that burned slowly. It roared and struggled, dragging more and more of its body out of the fissure. After a full half an hour, the bone dragon finally completely climbed out and stood in the big pit, quietly with its head lowered, as if it was recovering the energy consumed during the struggle, blue magic flashing. Its wingspan is close to 60 meters, and its body length is close to 65 meters. This should be a special bone dragon based on the skeleton of the Blackheart Iron Dragon. A chi held the 8 dragons' divine sword in her hand, ready to attack at any time. Liz stared at the place where the bone dragon's neck and body were connected, which should have been where the Dragon Fang platform was. The magic at the Dragon Fang platform is very bright, and there are rays of magic light connecting the dragon teeth. This should be the secret between the dragon teeth and the Dragon Fang platform, the soul connection. Brother, what do we do now? Wait, let's see how it reacts next. I don't know if we can communicate. Let me talk to it first. List looked at the motionless bone dragon, eager to move. No matter what dragon it was, he would ride it first. But strangely, when List threw a bull over, the bone dragon did not react. When he threw a bag of jade, the bone dragon did not react. When he threw a large piece of World of Warcraft meat, the bone dragon still did not react. He had barred roar at the bone dragon, but the bone dragon still did not react. What's going on? For an entire half an hour, the skeletal dragon stood quietly in the metal mine without any movement. It was as if it did not see List, Achi, and Bard, as well as the knight and serfs around it who were pointing at it. The blue flames in the dragon's eyes burned slowly, but he did not feel the gaze of a lich. Back then, Marquis Bull's blue flames gave people a strong feeling of being watched. Achi. List decided not to wait any longer. Help me guard it. I'm going to try riding it. Brother, don't worry. Achi is always ready. The next moment, List leaped from Bard's back and jumped directly onto the bone above the bone dragon's neck. The bone dragon did not react, allowing List to find the two flat bones that should have been the dragon fawn platform. Then he dawdled, changed into a comfortable position, and sat on the flat bone. In the blink of an eye, List felt that his soul was connected to the bone dragon, but he did not enter the battle of the soul. Instead, he replaced the bone dragon's consciousness and began to dominate this terrifying, ferocious, mysterious, and strange bone dragon. This bone dragon doesn't have any thoughts or consciousness, nor does it have a spiritual world exclusive to a dragon. It's like a walking corpse, and its mind is blank like a painting, and I can easily control everything about it and manipulate it to carry out any action. His mind turned. He controlled the bone dragon to move. First, he shook his bone forelimbs, then his bone hind limbs, and finally his bone wings. Then he turned the bone dragon's neck and tried to use the bone dragon's vision to see the world. After the field of vision switched, it became very special, and what he saw was a dark world. There was no sunlight, only a dim outline of the sun. When the light shone on its body, List felt a slight burning pain. The earth and trees were also dim, and even their shapes were somewhat distorted. Only the humans around the pit were the brightest, but they existed in a special, transparent white outline. He saw the outline of a chi, which was almost as bright as a 100-watt incandescent lamp. He also saw the outline of Bard, which was about as bright as a chi, but appeared brighter because of his size. The other knight's light was dimmer, and the serf's light was even dimmer. He turned his head again, tried to look at the light on his body, and found that the light on his body was similar to a chi's, not different from ordinary people's. This transparent outline, what does the depth of color mean? Chapter 924. Riding the Bone Dragon, List slowly climbed out of the metal pit. The surrounding knight and serfs hurriedly retreated outside. List issued a new order. Count Nickel, continue to organize the miners to excavate. Strive to excavate all the dragon bones buried underground. Not a single fragment missing. Yes, Your Highness. Nickel Bellows responded, full of admiration. He felt that this world-shaking bone dragon was too inconceivable. However, what was even more inconceivable was the Sir Lord he followed. When the Sapphire family gifted the Bellows family, which was the inheritance of the Iron Knight, to List, Nickel had not complained. The family had forged equipment for the Sapphire family for generations. Yet when it was time to discard them, they didn't even say a word and directly treated them as goods. Now, Nickel was very grateful to Sapphire Grand Duke. If it wasn't for Sapphire Grand Duke sending the Bellows family to List, how could he have witnessed so many miracles and obtained a bright and brilliant future? His Highness is really a son of glory. No, a secular embodiment of a knight's glory. He sighed inwardly. In a short period of time, dragons had gathered under his lord's command. It was even faster than greater aristocrats obtaining greater sprites. Today, while digging, he had casually dug out a bone dragon. Moreover, the bone dragon didn't resist in the slightest. allowing the Sir Lord to easily ride it. It was as if it had been waiting for the Sir Lord. Watching the bone dragon slowly walk out of the pit, Nickel withdrew his gaze from the stalwart figure and couldn't help but cheer up, shouting, "Therefore, knight, keep your spirits up and immediately carry out the task assigned by His Highness. Organize the miners to continue mining and excavate the dragon bone fragments." Under the knight's organization, the chaotic excavation site became orderly once again, with everyone performing their duties. This organizational strength was all thanks to List. As an ordinary person before his transmigration, List could not be said to be a qualified aristocratic lord. However, the biggest change brought about by his management of the fief was the general warfare strategy. Starting from the Flower Town, under his willful command, all officials and commoners repeatedly participated in the so-called general warfare of various styles. It was either a logging battle, a cleaning battle, a road repair battle, or a spring plowing battle. The experience of each major battle allowed the territory's officials to quickly grow and develop considerable organizational skills. After the development of Black Horse Island, various major battles occurred frequently. Knight, officials, and civilians all rapidly improved the level of organization. As a result, the combat power of developing the Flame Archipelago was created. A large number of former low-level officials were now in charge of the project. The Flame Being was relying on its organizational abilities to tame the Moon Killers bit by bit, completing its complete control over the Flaming Island. Patter. The Rattan was raised and fell on a lazy Moon Killer serf. A clerk holding a pen and paper shouted, "Serial number 699-516-999. Ala Diong, June 14th, 3 p.m., slacking off at the Dragon Pit mine, deducting 1 work point." After saying that, he found Ala Diong's name in the notebook and carefully noted down the time, place, and event. The work point system was a means that List came up with. Every serf had a minimum of 10 work points every day. Work points would be deducted if they made a mistake, and work points would be rewarded if they worked hard. After the end of the month, materials would be distributed according to the number of work points accumulated by the serfs. Basically, a Moon Killer serf could get 15 work points a day for 150 work points a month if he worked hard, didn't slack off, and didn't fight. In exchange for enough food to feed 2 children, if both husband and wife worked hard, it would not be a problem to feed 4 children. The Moon Killer people liked to have children, but the rate of premature death of children living in the forest was too high. Since they migrated out of the forest, the rate of premature death could be controlled to less than 20%. It had to be said, although List adopted an unfair policy to treat the Moon Killer serfs, at least he did a good job in ensuring the lives of the Moon Killer serfs. Compared to the European and American colonists on Earth who carried out genocide against the African slaves and the indigenous Indians, List was more humanitarian. The Moon Killer serf named Ala Diong was hit by the Rattan and felt a burning pain in his back. Another work point was deducted, and he was doomed to not get today's work points. His mouth was swearing, but he did not dare to resist the clerical clerk. Under the resentful eyes of the entire production team, he could only lower his head and continue to work, not daring to slack off. The work point system had a production team. If a production team had several thorns and refused to mend their ways, it would implicate the serfs of the entire production team and deduct a certain amount of work points. Therefore, the serfs would supervise each other. Whoever affected everyone's work points would inevitably be boycotted and even beaten up in private. Riding the bone dragon to a quiet area, List was ready to slowly study this different dragon. He originally wanted to try to fly, but the bone dragon flapped its wings, but it could not raise any wind and could only stumble on the ground. It feels a bit useless. It doesn't even have the ability to breathe. Shaking his head, he jumped off the back of the bone dragon. Achie, try to see if you can ride the bone dragon. This bone dragon is obviously just a body without consciousness. Maybe you can ride it. Chi nodded. She really wanted to try riding a dragon. Because mages did not cultivate their own magic, They mainly absorbed the free magic in the air or the magic of the magic net. Therefore, they could not have a mind connection with the dragon and were doomed to not be able to ride a dragon. However, this special bone dragon might have a different experience. Unfortunately, to the disappointment of both Achi and List, Achi could not inject her consciousness into the body even if she rode on the dragon tooth platform. She could not control the bone dragon. Brother, Achi is so sad. Don't be sad. It's just a bone dragon. After all, dragons belong to the knight cultivation system, while you belong to the mage cultivation system. List rubbed Achi's hair and hurriedly comforted the little siren. Besides, although you can't ride it, you can study it. Achi was happy again. Achi likes to study dragons. I can help brother master it as soon as possible. The nature of the existence of the bone dragon needed Achi to study it. List did not have the energy and brain power to do so. He preferred to think about the value of the bone dragon. First of all, the bone dragon's vision seemed to be able to see the soul of a living creature and understand the strength of the soul at a glance, which should be very useful. Even because it was a creature of the dead and involved the soul, it was likely to be similar to the ghost ship made by Curtis Truth. Curtis hoped to rely on the ghost ship to go to the land of exile and find the soul of her loved one, Annette Sapphire. List felt that he might be able to rely on the bone dragon to go to the land of exile, find the fairy dragon, and contract it to gain eternal life. Secondly, the bone dragon was so easy to control, it might become a teaching tool for dragon riding. Let the dragon knight choose to ride the bone dragon to adapt to the feeling of the spiritual battle in advance. Thinking of this, Chapter 925. Emily arrived quickly because she had recently changed her mount. List had given her his mount from when he was young, a mid-level wind-type dragon, Chocobo Loki. The development of Inferno Island was expanding. Firewood City, Jade City, Dragon Valley City, Reed City, and Estuary City were being built at the same time. However, the distance between the cities was very far. The closest city, Firewood City, was more than 300 kilometers from Dragon Valley City, equivalent to the distance between Shanghai and Nanjing. Communicating by horse was a waste of time, especially for a follower like Emily who was highly valued by List. She often had to take on multiple duties and travel between different cities. It was necessary to change to a good mount. Of course, Emily was the only one who enjoyed such treatment at the moment. Your Highness, you're here, Emily. List sized up the girl who was 7 meters tall and no longer flat. Her breasts and buttocks were starting to perk up. I recently obtained a special dragon, a bone dragon. It's very interesting, but it doesn't have its own consciousness. You could try riding it. He pointed at the huge creature that was standing still with its head lowered, as if in deep thought. The bone dragon had a wingspan of 60 meters and a body length of 65 meters. Its entire body flickered with a ghostly blue light. Its dragon teeth were like glowing suns, and its eyes were 2 balls of blue fire. Sunlight shone directly on the bone dragon, making List feel a burning sensation when he rode it. However, it was just a feeling. The sunlight had no special effect on the bone dragon. Unlike vampires, sunlight would greatly suppress their strength, because the bone dragon's mana was classified as supreme or high magic. The ghostly blue mana at the joints was chaotic supreme magic, and the ghostly blue mana that leaked out was chaotic high magic. Your Highness, is it appropriate for me to ride this bone dragon? Emily was confused. List had always told her to prepare to ride the Emerald Dragon Ethan. Don't worry. The bone dragon is different from normal dragons. It's like a piece of equipment. I'll let you feel it to increase your proficiency and success rate when riding it. I hope you can become Ethan's knight, but it's very risky to fail. You need to be better prepared. Emily understands. Nodding her head, Emily no longer hesitated. She took to the air and jumped onto the back of the bone dragon, finding the location of the Dragon Fong platform under List's guidance. Taking a deep breath, the girl suppressed her excitement. Glancing at List, she slowly sat down on the Dragon Tooth platform. Suddenly, a mysterious feeling welled up in her heart, causing her to experience a very wonderful illusion. At this moment, she felt that she was still Emily, but at the same time, she had a body made of bones. It was as if she had become the bone dragon under her, but with two bodies and one mind. Experience this feeling carefully. Although it's not as intense as riding a dragon, it will help you get used to this wonderful yet awkward feeling. Hearing List's voice, Emily quickly calmed down and began to control the bone dragon with her mind. At first, it stumbled when it moved, but as it became more and more familiar with this feeling, the bone dragon's movements also began to become smoother. Half an hour later, she could already control the bone dragon to run. She also tried to fly, but to no avail. Wu, the invisible dragon, flew over from afar, carrying List and activating the crystal white orbit, carefully sizing up the bone dragon under Emily's control. Qi also cast the super spell Magic Eye, carefully observing the information revealed by the bone dragon. Emily, who had ridden the bone dragon, did not learn the secret of the dragon's fighting aura. The bone dragon was not a dragon in the ordinary sense, and could not train together with a knight. Therefore, Emily still had to slowly take potions to train in high-level fighting aura. But she was, after all, talented. Not long after she advanced to a Sky Knight, her battle prowess had already surpassed that of an ordinary Sky Knight, and was about to reach the strength of a sacred swordsman. She had a natural sensitivity to battle, and her body's adaptability to fighting aura was also very outstanding. Taking a potion was equivalent to taking several potions for other Sky Knights. In addition, List also secretly taught her the fighting aura secret skill Aura Decay, so that she could use potions more sparingly. So far, apart from the secret skill Magic Eye, which must be kept a secret, List no longer cared about other fighting aura secret skills. Fighting aura secret skills were very precious for a Sky Knight, but for a Dragon Knight, they were not very useful. He could teach them to people close to him at will. Also, he was ready to wait for his father Lee William's birthday this year, and teach him the fighting aura secret skill as a gift to help Lee William advance to a domain knight. Perhaps the relationship between father and son was somewhat fake, but after all, they were related by blood. In the process of the Fire Kingdom's founding, Lee William played a very important role, and almost all diplomatic affairs were handled by Marquis Oxdale. This year, I will give the Marquis the fighting aura secret skill, and after the founding of the kingdom, he will be conferred the title of Duke. With the second largest island of the Fire Islands, Tulip Island, as a fief, this life's kinship can be repaid, and I can inherit the karma of my predecessor. When he first came to this world, he wanted to cut himself off from the Tulip family, but it was not easy. In the end, he still accepted the family's kinship. Now that he was a 5-dragon knight and the Fire King, he did not mind when one man achieves the Tao. His chickens and dogs follow him. Not only would he let the Tulip family enjoy wealth and status, he would also take care of the Taro family. Aunt Melinda's Pinecone family, Sister Lavera's Basil family. He would do his best to support them. Also, those elders who followed him would also enjoy glory and wealth. The practice of once the cunning hare is dead, the hound is cooked, and when the birds are dead, the good bough is hidden would not exist. With the continuous inheritance of the 5-dragon, the Fire family would stand at the top of the Knight system for at least a few hundred or 1,000 years, enjoying the fun of the game. Just like the Platinum family of the Steel Ridge, the Golden Crown family of the Blast Furnace Castle, and the Moonlight Silver and White Iron families of the Eagle family. After a few hundred or 1,000 years of inheritance, generation after generation of descendants would enjoy the highest level of power. As long as the dragons did not die, the family would not fall from the throne. Even if the old dragons died, as long as there were new dragons to replace them, the family could still continue the game. It was said that the Shining Empire on the other side of the continent had lasted for more than 2,000 years. The dragon-raising family that ruled this empire was still passed down and had never declined. After all, this world was different from the ancient China on Earth. Dragons were the guarantee of status, not the people's hearts. Your Highness, I have already familiarized myself with the feeling of riding a dragon. Reed Avenue is still under construction, and the Mammoth Orders of Chivalry cannot leave my command. Please allow me to return to work on the Mammoth Orders of Chivalry." After a day of riding a dragon, Emily decisively said her goodbyes. She could see that List and Achi had a lot of research work to do. "That's good. Go do what you need to do." List did not ask Emily to stay, but he thought for a moment and said, "The Fire Kingdom is about to be established. I will be too busy riding a dragon alone. You have to grow quickly and help me share the burden of a dragon. Here are 100 platinum potions. Take them and use them." Platinum potions, 500 gold coins each. This was the price in the Steel Ridge Kingdom. In the Sapphire Kingdom, it would sell for at least 700 to 800 gold coins each. Emily took the platinum potions and did not refuse. She just nodded her head, yes. Chapter 926. After Emily left, List and Achi seized the time to study the bone dragon. They obtained a lot of valuable information, but they did not form a systematic proof of the nature of the bone dragon's existence. Unfortunately, Curtis Truth left behind too few records on liches and ghost ships. We still lack basic research on the soul. It's not good to expose the orichalcum for now, and we can't give Andre to Sapphire Grand Duke in exchange for information on the lord of the dragon domain and liches. Achi nodded. "Brother, although there's not much information, we've basically figured out how to control the bone dragon. The bone dragon has some of the characteristics of an elemental dragon. If we have to sum it up, it should be his soul element. Brother can control it according to Leo's method of possession. Leo could transform into a magical form and attach it to List's body. List also planned to find an opportunity for Leo to train in a new skill. He tried to have Leo use his magical form to condense a set of flame armor on the surface of his body, just like the flame-shaped armor Achi saw with the Scepter of Time. Now that they had the Bone Dragon, the supreme magic of the Bone Dragon had been studied. It actually had the characteristics of an elemental dragon. It was clearly a special undead creature formed by the entanglement of the bones and the soul of a metal dragon, but unexpectedly obtained a magical form similar to an elemental dragon. This might be the best proof of the triangular theory of matter magic spirit. I'll try to control it. Achi, if you're in a hurry to return to Reed City to study the magic teleportation circle, let Bard send you back first. After we sell Andre to Sapphire Grand Duke and get the information on the Lich and the Lord of the Dragon Domain, we'll study this bone dragon systematically." List said. He temporarily saw the bone dragon as a dragon-riding model machine. He could use the bone dragon to train a dragon knight, and he could also use the bone dragon to experiment with new skills. Achi left on the invisible dragon, while he continued to explore the bone dragon. "I'm connected to Leo's mind, and I know how it transforms from a flesh and blood body to a magical form. What it lacks now is proficiency." Leo's transformation was an innate ability, but List had to use his mind to communicate with the Bone Dragon's supreme magic of chaos, fusing his body with the supreme magic to develop a magical form. It was still difficult to control such a huge bone dragon with one's mind, like a cart with little horses. However, when the cart started moving smoothly, the pony was able to pull it along. Therefore, for the next half a month in June, List worked hard to control the bone dragon and did not participate much in the development of the territory. All he did was show up when he trained with the dragon and formed a contract with a new elf. After that, he became a hands-off boss. The dragon-slaying war ended in April. The negotiations between the three countries in May were completed. June was relatively peaceful. The news of the Copper Dragon being ridden was kept a secret, and there seemed to be no movement from the Eagle Kingdom. Andre was also not affected by the curse, and was raised like a pig in the prison attached to Firewood Castle, eating, drinking, and sleeping. The situation in the four great kingdoms had stabilized. For List, the biggest surprise in June, apart from the Bone Dragon, was the reward of the Smoke Mission. After the announcement of the brand new Dragon Knight plan, which was exclusive to the Fire Kingdom and used schools as a method of promotion, was announced, the Smoke Mission was completed. Mission completed. Reward: 1 corn sprite. Yes, it was the corn sprite that List had before, Mickey, who had evolved. One day, after List had lunch and was ready to read the new night novel, Mickey, who had moved to Firewood Castle, suddenly flew over to find him, who was scratching the cover, and took out a handful of corn kernels. Then, in front of List, it counted the kernels one by one. Jigu, Jigu, Jigu. Although it called out the same, the meaning was very clear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. From 1 to 11, it counted very clearly. Well done, Mickey. List was generous with his praise. In the next few days, Mickey was sometimes excited and sometimes depressed, which made List very nervous for a while, afraid that its evolution would fail. Therefore, even the new smoke mission was a little distracted. Mission: you have discovered the special function of the bone dragon, but there's always some disconnect when you control it independently. Perhaps you should find a way to solve this problem. One person's spiritual power is limited, so it is better to try the spiritual power of 2 people. Please complete the complete control of the bone dragon. Reward: Gem Crown. Fortunately, Mickey eventually evolved successfully and became a beautiful corn sprite. Its personality was not as distinct as Ella's, and it seemed somewhat peaceful. But it was still very smart, and its interest in counting was not reduced, but it was no longer limited to corn kernels. 1, 2, 3, 4. List: there are 26 sprites living in the castle. It mastered the language very quickly. Because it was taught by the castle servants when it was still a sprite, it already knew a lot of Serpentine, which was the official language of the Fire Kingdom. Great! Congratulations, you got it right. So, Mickey, how many sprite worms are there in the castle? List asked a new question. At present, sprites mainly lived in Thorn's Castle and Firewood Castle. Mickey counted Firewood Castle, which had 26 sprites, but the number of sprite worms exceeded 200. Mickey began to count seriously. 1, 2, 3, 4, 49, 50, 37, 38, 49, 50, 21, 22. Oh, List, my mind is in a mess, I can't count. After repeating the count for the 5th time, Mickey finally understood a fact. Even though its counting ability had improved by leaps and bounds, it was still unable to count numbers above 50. Therefore, you have to practice more. When you can count from 1 to 100, I will teach you more profound mathematics, not only basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. While speaking, List pulled out a piece of white paper from the desk, on which was drawn a stair-like table. There's also the 9 by 9 multiplication table. Yes, I will count seriously. After seeing the form, Mickey's eyes shone. After expressing his confidence, he returned to the sprite house and busily counted the colorful sprite worms in front of him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 49, 50, 44, 45, shaking its head. List was a little amused. I don't know if Mickey can trigger the evolution of the dragon sprite when he counts to 100, but at present, it and Ella and the other great sprites are not interested in the 5-headed dragon that I have. At present, only the Phoenix Parasol Tree Great Sprite Ani was deeply in love with the little fire dragon Leo. The Pea Great Sprite, Ash, was deeply in love with the gray-mouthed Iron Dragon On. It is still far from it. Suddenly, a crisp voice interrupted List's fantasy. It was the man-eating tree dragon sprite Callie. Instead of flying, it wore shoes and walked like a human. It was no longer naked and chose to wear a small frack abbey, dressing itself up as a handsome young aristocrat. With a height of 1 meter, a pale yellow face, and a leaf on its head, it added a hint of playfulness to its handsomeness. Callie raised its head and showed a proud expression. List, I have developed the important value of the man-eating tree and found a magic ingredient variant. Now you know my importance. It waved its hand. A green light was projected into the flower pot on the balcony, and then an emerald green sapling forcibly occupied the ornamental plants in the pot and grew into a half-meter-tall man-eating tree. Chapter 927. He had contracted the cannibal tree dragon elf Carly for a long time, and the cannibal tree plantation was also established in Fireforge City, but the function of the cannibal tree had never been found. This tree did not produce food, nor did it look good. At most, the quality of the wood was good, but the trunk was too thin. So Carly's previous identity as a dragon elf was of little value. It seemed very magical, a dragon elf that could only be bred by a dragon-raising family. But its value was probably reflected in its ability to chat with List. Although it was a cannibal tree, it could only catch civilians to eat. It was not reliable to deal with a knight or an ancient magician, and it could only move under Carly's control. Although he didn't say it clearly, Carly could feel her awkward position and the regret in List's heart for her. So she took a deep breath, brought a group of cannibal trees out several times, and finally found a mutated species of cannibal tree, the ogre tree. This was the name List gave to the new species after looking at the cannibal tree potion variety. The chaos quality potion's concentration was not high, but considering that the whole plant could be extracted, the production should not be too bad. Carly, I never thought you were not important. You are my first dragon elf, and you have a very important place in my heart, List said seductively. Hearing this, Carly straightened her chest. Although it seemed dismissive, it actually cared about List's opinion. After all, with the power of the contract, it subtly made List have a good impression. Then next, please help the serfs in the plantation to plant more ogre trees. Don't worry, leave it to me. Carly nodded and said proudly, and I will continue to look for more varieties of ogre trees, as well as ogre trees with auxiliary properties. Cannibal trees are very common in the forest, and there must be countless mutated species. I will find them for you. Of course, that's good, but you have to be careful. The outside world is very dangerous. I'm not afraid. I can burrow underground. No matter what World of Warcraft I encounter, those Moonkiller can only be killed by me. Carly's tone was very fierce. As expected of a dragon elf who had once slaughtered a large Moonslayer tribe, she had a valiant temperament. I know that you are very powerful. Well, if you encounter the Moonkiller people outside, try not to kill them if you can. After all, they will be my serfs in the future, farming the land and making items for me. Carly crossed her arms in front of her chest, turned around, and left, rejecting List's words. If it encountered a Moonslayer who came looking for trouble, it would not be polite and kill those who deserve to be killed. Seeing this, List could only helplessly express that he would slowly train him in the future. And there was another thought in his mind. It seems that Ella can't migrate to Firewood Castle for the time being. Her bad temper meets Carly's fierceness, and they might fight on the spot, but List suddenly had another burst of inspiration. As the saying goes, misfortune may be a blessing in disguise, and misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. Ella was a different kind of elf. Every time it evolved, it was derived from the oppression of fate, and finally broke the shackles to complete transcendence. Would it be possible to speed up Ella's development by letting Carly stimulate her? We can give it a try. At this moment, far away in Thorn Castle, Ella, who was patrolling the territory, suddenly shivered. Wow. It was a little strange. It seemed to have felt something bad just now. But the feeling was just a flash, and it didn't care anymore. With his hands behind his back, he slowly circled around Thorn Castle before returning to the insectoid room and yelling at the chirping elves, "All of you, be quiet and go to sleep." Instantly, the worm room area of Thorn Castle quieted down. This made Ella feel very accomplished, but soon it was depressed again. A lot of elves have been sent away, and List hasn't come back for several days. Wow, Ella doesn't like it here. Mickey's evolution allowed the scale of corn cultivation to expand rapidly. Carly found the magic potion and increased the planting of cannibal trees unprecedentedly. And List gradually completed the exploration of the bone dragon's magic form. He could already control the bone dragon and fuse with the supreme magic to change its form. However, the difficulty of changing the form was very high, and the completion was not enough. Bone dragon, transform. He was trying again at the moment. The bone dragon let out a roar, and the blue light on its body bloomed, quickly enveloping all the dragon bones. Then the whole bone dragon shrank rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye, and eventually turned into a skeleton more than 3 meters high, surrounding List in it. The skeleton vaguely formed a human shape, like a set of bloated armor, with crisscross bones, but it was very inconvenient for him to move. I still can't shrink into a normal armor state. The bone dragon's magic form requires too much mental power, and I can't control it alone. It seems that I really have to find someone to share my mental power consumption. The smoke mission also asked me to find someone to share my mental power. It's not that he didn't want to share the bone dragon with others, but he didn't know how to find someone to share it with. He could find Emily to cooperate at any time, but the bone dragon could only be ridden by one person at a time, and it was impossible to connect the minds of two knights at the same time. So he tried hard to explore, trying to complete the control alone. After repeated attempts to no avail, he decided to find someone to share the burden according to the smoke mission's instructions. First, he asked Chi. After all, it was not easy to find someone to share the mental power. After listening to List's question, Chi thought for a while and said, "Brother, do you still remember Virginia Truth?" "Virginia?" List was stunned, and then said, "Of course I remember. She followed the expedition fleet out to sea, and is still anchored on the shore of the legendary continent. Virginia has become a necro-clown fish, but Chi feels that her soul and the necro-clown fish have not completely merged and can be separated by some operations. Brother's soul storage tank is a good material for soul separation magic. Why not let her share the mental power for Brother? Are you sure that Virginia can help me share the mental power?" "Yes, you can put Virginia's soul into the body of the bone dragon. In this way, the bone dragon will have the power to move semi-autonomously. When Brother rides the bone dragon, you can join forces with Virginia, and you should be able to completely control the bone dragon." After listening to Chi's explanation, List immediately nodded. "Okay, I'll find Virginia now. I'll give you the soul storage tank. You can set it up first. When the time comes, separate her soul and put it into the bone dragon." He did as he said. Riding on the invisible dragon Bard, one man and one dragon quickly rushed to the coastline of the legendary continent. With Bard speed, they soon arrived at the place where the expedition fleet was anchored. A simple port town had been built there. Because of the problem of supplies, the fleet had recently returned to Flame Island, bringing enough food and wealth for Yevich to attack Snowstorm Mountain Duchy. Virginia lived in this port town, guarding the safety of the fleet. The harpoon-shaped shredder staff trembled, and she was awakened from her sleep by List. "Your Highness, when did you arrive? You have to leave here for a while. I have a mission that requires your cooperation. Maybe after the mission is completed, you can change to a more comfortable body." "A more comfortable body?" Virginia was puzzled. "Yes. Let's not talk about this first. I'll put you into the space ring first, and we'll talk about it in detail when we get there." Putting away the shredder staff, the invisible dragon quickly traveled through space. After a while, it rushed out of the Heart Reed teleportation formation and returned to Reed City. After arriving here, List briefly explained the situation in front of the bone dragon. "Specifically, I still lack some mental strength to control the bone dragon. Chi has a way to put you into the bone dragon's body to replace the bone dragon in controlling this body. Then, you can cooperate with me to complete the change of the form of magic power." Bone Dragon. Virginia, who was in the state of the ugly necro fish, seemed to be in trance. "It looks huge. Can I really control it?" "There's no problem with basic movement, but with your mental strength alone, you can at most control the bone dragon to move like a beast. You can't release more dragon abilities. But when I ride on it, you and I can definitely use all the power of the bone dragon together. Of course, the choice is up to you. I won't force you." List did not force her, because he believed that even if she was a woman when she was alive, she still could not resist the charm of a dragon, even if she became a bone dragon. Moreover, the bone dragon was much more powerful and domineering than the ugly necro fish. As expected, Chapter 928. Relying on the soul storage jar, which was not a divine artifact, Chi successfully extracted Virginia Truth's soul from the Shredder's staff. At this moment, Virginia turned into a young girl again. White light formed the outline of her soul, and she had a very eye-catching 36D figure. The Shredder's staff, which had its soul extracted, could no longer withstand the erosion of magic because of the necro fish's destruction. It was completely scrapped into a broken harpoon. "Your Highness, Sir Magic Shooter, what should I do next?" Virginia returned to her original appearance. Looking at herself in the mirror, she was a little dazed. During the time when she became a necro fish, every time she appeared, she could only remember the strange looks from the night around her. She almost forgot that she was once a young girl. Now, she was both happy about returning to her original body and the unknown fear of becoming a bone dragon. Relax. Since you could fuse with the necro fish, you can fuse with the bone dragon now. With the Chi and I protecting you, there is no need to worry about any risks, List comforted her. Virginia nodded. Yes. Indeed, with the Great Dragon Knight and Magic Shooter as protection, there was no better protection than this. Chi carried the soul storage jar, and List carried her on the back of the bone dragon. Chi could not fly for now, and she was busy mastering the Earth Elemental Incarnation. She had to wait until she mastered the Earth Elemental Incarnation, then try to master the Wind Elemental Incarnation, and finally learn to fly with the Wind Elemental Incarnation. The seal of the dragon teeth is too high, and Virginia's soul cannot be poured into the dragon teeth. However, the dragon tooth platform is an open soul entrance. This is Virginia's only chance. Sir Magic Shooter, please tell me. Virginia will listen to you and Her Highness, the 36D girl said quickly, her tone respectful. Almost all mages would become even more humble than servants when they saw magic shooters. They could not wait to kneel on the ground and lick the shoes of magic shooters. This was a sick pursuit of the truth. In their eyes, magic shooters were the embodiment of truth walking in the secular world. There is no need to do anything complicated. Chi will build a simple soul-stabilizing magic circle here, and you will be replenished with magic. The next step is to enter the dragon's soul through the dragon tooth platform and replace it. You will have to work hard to achieve this process. I understand. After setting up the soul-stabilizing magic array, he poured Virginia out of the soul storage jar and into the magic array. After a moment of preparation, Virginia's figure had become much more solid. Under List's guidance, she slowly sat on the Dragon Fong platform. At that moment, a ghostly blue light rose from the Dragon Fong platform and quickly entangled with Virginia, who was in soul form. Then, when the light faded, Virginia also disappeared. She went in, Chi said calmly. List nodded and jumped off the bone dragon's back with Chi in his arms. Then, he jumped onto the invisible dragon bard's back, activated Crystal White Orbit, and quietly waited for the bone dragon's changes. After about a quarter of an hour of silence, the blue magic light on the bone dragon suddenly trembled, and then its head twisted. Its wings, limbs, and tail also began to move one after another. These movements were not big, but List was pleasantly surprised because this meant that Virginia was taking over the bone dragon. However, the bone dragon only moved a little before falling into a long period of silence. Chi, what's going on? Is there a problem with Virginia's soul? Do you need me to ride on it and sense it? Brother, don't be impatient. Chi's eyes were like a whirlpool of stars. Although the bone dragon has no consciousness, its soul exists, or should I say it is pure. However, it's not easy for Virginia to replace the bone dragon's dragon soul with her own soul. Then we just wait like this. The fight for souls is very dangerous. Brother, riding on the bone dragon will not help Virginia at all, and will even interfere with her. The moment the soul is injected, only one of Virginia's soul and the bone dragon's soul will be left. Chi tugged at the slightly anxious List. Brother, quickly use Crystal White Orbit to carefully observe the bone dragon. Don't miss any details. I understand. List nodded solemnly. He was very clear that the study of souls was very likely to be an important clue for the Dragon Knight to break through to the next level of training. Therefore, Any research information related to the soul must be collected. Now that the bone dragon soul was fighting, it was an excellent opportunity to observe the soul up close. Half an hour later, the bone dragon moved again. However, it was not the body that moved, but the blue flames in the bone dragon's eyes were dancing, trembling as if there was a wind blowing. But in fact, the blue flames formed by magic were not afraid of the wind. It was not a flame on the physical plane, but a chaotic magic that involved the soul. The sun set and the moon rose. The moon set and the stars hung. The dark sky was beginning to brighten, and the whole night passed slowly with the bone dragon moving from time to time. List and Ichi did not sleep for the whole night, recording the state of the bone dragon. Finally, when the first ray of sunlight from the east shone on the magic reed rinsing door in the distance, the bone dragon in a secluded corner of the forest moved again. And this time, the bone dragon clearly seemed to be freed from some kind of seal. It had the charm of life, and the blue light was inhaling and exhaling like it was breathing. Roar! The bone dragon let out a strange roar, as if it was ringing in its ears and heart at the same time. It slowly turned its head and looked in the direction of List and Ichi. The dragon's head nodded slightly. "Brother, it's Virginia," Ichi said. List's tired eyes suddenly lit up, and his spirit was refreshed. "Yes," Virginia succeeded. Then, "Ichi, can I try to communicate with Virginia while riding the bone dragon?" "Sure." And so, List quickly jumped from the back of the invisible dragon to the back of the bone dragon, found the dragon fawn platform, and was about to sit down. However, at this moment, a twisted thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Virginia's soul has replaced the bone dragon's soul. So if I sit down like this, what does it mean? The dragon fawn platform represented the unity of the soul, and he did not have any strange thoughts about the unity of the soul with the dragon. However, if the soul of this dragon was a human, and a human girl at that, wouldn't such unity of the soul be a higher level of unity of the soul than unity of the body? Unity of the soul? That's a little evil. Stop. He took a deep breath, got rid of the distracting thoughts, and then sat down. In a flash, he had regained the familiar feeling of riding the bone dragon. The cold and sharp texture was the unique characteristic of the bone dragon soul. But this time, there was a slightly warmer texture in the cold texture. It was not so obvious, but the experience it brought was very profound. It was like a campfire in the night, making him feel warm and comfortable. He wanted to try to get closer to this warmth and be wrapped in it. At the same time, Chapter 9:29. The voice was very soft, and he did not know where it came from. When he listened carefully and followed the warm feeling, he finally found the source of the voice. "Virginia, it's me, Your Highness. I just fused with the bone dragon's soul, and I'm not very agile yet. Your soul is too strong, and there's a strong repulsive force that makes me uncomfortable. I can't connect with you on a deeper level, Your Highness." Virginia's voice was very faint. It seems that you still need to practice. Virginia, maybe I should teach you how to resonate at the soul level first. Resonance is the best way to unite the mind and soul. Can you sense me, Your Highness? I'll try. Like asking himself, List quickly found Virginia's consciousness when he focused. It was like recalling a memory fragment in his mind, or finding a forgotten thought. When he found it, he connected with Virginia's consciousness. The next moment, he saw the girl's past, which was fragmented. Compared to List's strong soul, which was protected by the smoke, Virginia's soul was very weak. It was like a leaky house, and List could see anything in it. She learned magic when she was young, scolded by her father, oppressed by her sister, talked in the goat gathering, carved dragon bones, and walked alone in the fields. Virginia's life was monotonous, and there were not many ups and downs. She did not even have any memories of her death. It was unknown whether she had forgotten it or buried it in her heart and did not want to release it. "Virginia, accept me." List had already sensed Virginia's soul and tried to fuse with her, just like when he was riding a dragon. Virginia panicked. What should I do, Your Highness? Relax and try to take a deep breath. Don't resist, or we'll start a battle of the soul. Your soul is not as strong as a dragon's, and the battle of the soul will make you collapse. Okay, I'll try. Virginia's soul was originally like a hedgehog, but under List's guidance, it became a sponge. List's consciousness merged with it, completing the simplest soul and soul fusion. It was as if he had become Virginia and was experiencing everything about her. No soul detail could escape List's senses. He had filled every single bubble in Virginia's sponge with his consciousness. The feeling of complete integration was like a fish entering the water. It could only be described as water and milk melting together. It was very comfortable. However, compared to riding a dragon, the feeling was still much weaker. After all, 3 souls were currently fusing together. The Bone Dragon's soul, Virginia's soul, and List's soul. The Bone Dragon's soul was like a cold bed. Virginia and List hugged each other for warmth, using resonance to heat up the bed. Virginia, follow my rhythm. List was already used to the feeling of being one with the soul, so he quickly reminded Virginia, who was almost intoxicated. Virginia woke up with a start. She had never experienced such comfort in her entire life. I understand, Your Highness. Soul vibration. List skillfully brought Virginia to vibrate together, and then moved the Bone Dragon's pure soul together. After repeating it a few times, they finally reached the same frequency and completely completed the soul and soul connection. In this Dragon Rider resonance frequency, Virginia's soul quickly fused with the Bone Dragon's soul and took over the soul's dominant consciousness. In the end, among the 3 souls, the Bone Dragon's soul and Virginia's soul had completely fused. Meanwhile, List and this new soul continued to maintain the Dragon Rider resonance, their minds linked as one, their thoughts reaching the same level. You and me, I and you, of course, with the protection of the fate power represented by the Smoke Mission. Even the Dragon Rider resonance couldn't pry into the deepest secrets of List's soul. He could see everything in the hearts of all dragons, but dragons could only see the side he was willing to let out. This was also the case for Virginia's new soul after fusing with the Bone Dragon. It's done, Your Highness. I am the Bone Dragon, and the Bone Dragon is Virginia. I can feel it clearly, Virginia. Although your new soul is still weaker than a normal dragon soul, I can feel it. However, if you and I fuse together, we will be able to perfectly control this Bone Dragon, or rather, perfectly control your new body. You have been reborn. Yes, I have been reborn. Virginia smiled. This was a communication through divine sense, as if she was thinking about it. Since I'm reborn, the name Virginia Truth is a thing of the past. Your Highness, why don't you give me a new name? She sensed List's interest and extended an invitation. List readily agreed. That's how it should be. As for the new name, let's take a part of your name and call her Winnie. Winnie, Virginia gladly accepted. Roar. The Bone Dragon let out an unprecedented roar. This was the roar that Winnie had released with all the mana in her body. It was like a soul shock wave spreading in all directions. Wherever it passed, even a magic shooter like a Chi could feel a cold knock on her soul, making her temporarily absent-minded. This was definitely a very powerful attack. However, List did not pay attention to the roar of the Bone Dragon for now. He and Winnie quickly controlled the Bone Dragon to transform into its magic form. The Blue Supreme Magic Dragon quickly covered all the dragon bones, then melted the dragon bones, condensed into a special Supreme Magic Ball, and went into List's body. It was like the Fire Dragon pattern on his chest. The pattern of the Bone Dragon was concentrated on his head and only on the left half of his face. From his scalp to his face, a strange blue pattern was quickly drawn. The pattern on the scalp could not be seen because it was covered by his hair, but the pattern on his face was clearly visible. It was a pattern similar to a skull mask. It was not a skull with a human face, but a skull with a dragon head. List, who was originally very handsome, instantly became cold and strange because of this half-face skull mask pattern, but also with a hint of coquettish demeanor. His temperament directly jumped from a handsome young master to a psychopathic evil villain. The only thing that did not change was the clarity in his eyes. Of course, even if he was a psychopathic villain, he was still a handsome one. Achi, what do you think of my appearance? List landed on his feet and walked toward Achi. So scary, brother. Huh. List was very proud. Achi condensed a mirror made of water and let him look in it. Admiring his strange appearance in the mirror, List could not help but touch the pattern on the left side of the skull. As expected, no matter what I look like, I am still handsome. Winnie's laughter sounded in his mind. Because of the magic form, he and Winnie had disconnected the spiritual connection, but like riding a normal dragon, they still had a strong telepathic connection. Winnie's soul had filled the gap in the bone dragon's soul, making it a complete dragon. Don't laugh, Winnie. Let's make some changes. From the magic form to the armor form. List raised his eyebrows. Chapter 9:30. The supreme demon of the bone dragon kept surging out of the blue skull mask and turned into blue bones that quickly surrounded List. In a flash, List, who was originally wearing frack Abir, had turned into an armored warrior covered in blue bones. Unlike the huge bones of the bone dragon, these bones were very small, so they could be tightly packed together to form a bone armor. The blue light between the cracks dyed the white bones blue. It not only made up for the paleness of the bones, but also added a lot of mystery. The armor was a mimicry of a knight's armor, but there were still hideous bone spikes in some places. A powerful force wrapped around List. This was a special state where the supreme demon of the dragon and the dragon combat in his body were entangled. In other words, although he was currently in the form of a human, the power of the bone dragon was partially retained. If one had to define this state, it was a half-dragon. So, he was not wearing armor, but a kinetic exoskeleton. Power, abundance. This is the armor I desire. List reached out a hand and looked at his palm that was covered in dense bone fragments. A blue flame ignited in his palm. This was the supreme demon of chaos that involved the power of the soul. It was constantly operating in the form of a flame. Your Highness, I can still extend. Do you need a dragon spear or a longsword? Winnie's thoughts flashed in his mind. In this half-dragon state, he and Winnie could still connect as one, but it was not as deep as when he was riding a dragon. It was probably between riding a dragon and being apart. Dragon spear, longsword? List thought of something. Not for now. I still need to make some changes to the bone dragon armor. Winnie, stay in this state. Don't worry, Your Highness. I have never felt so powerful. Ever since I became a ghost, I have never experienced cold or hot pain. Today is the only time I feel so full. My soul and the bone dragon's fusion is perfect. There is no sign of disintegration. Then I am relieved. List communicated with Winnie in his mind for a moment, then turned to Achi, who was watching the show from the side, and said, "Help me create a bigger mirror. Then help me refer to the parts of this dragon bone armor that need improvement." Yes. Achi waved her hand, and a huge water mirror appeared out of thin air. There were a total of 3 mirrors, and they surrounded List's front, back, and right sides. The left side was where Chi was standing, and there was no water mirror there. The figure in the mirror fully displayed List's dragon bone armor. Every detail was exposed to his field of vision. The keel at the neck is too thick. It feels a little short and thick. I need to make it thinner. It's the same for the waist. You need to maintain the line, and don't be too tight to prevent it from affecting your movement. The protection of this armor is too tight. As a powerful dragon knight, I don't need such suffocating protection. Just leave the dragon bones at the crucial parts. Leave a bigger gap and let the blue light fill it up. This way, it will look more mysterious. The head armor doesn't need a coxcomb headdress. Change it to bull horns. Use the original pair of bull horns from the bone dragon. The mask only needs to cover one eye to use the bone dragon's vision, leaving the other eye to use normal vision. It's a pity that the combination of the magic eye and the bone dragon's vision can't be developed. Otherwise, I might be able to see some special scenes and even see the land of exile. Add a few more bone spurs on the shoulders. The shape of the entire armor was finalized based on the suggestions of Qi and Winnie, as well as List's own aesthetic taste. From the previous full-package knight armor to the current half-package simple armor, it reduced the bulkiness of the armor and increased its magnificence. Does it feel like it's still missing something? List looked at the mirror. Looking left and right, he always felt that there was something lacking. Qi looked at it for a moment and said seriously, "Brother, there are dragon horns on the head of the armor, but there are no matching dragon wings, and you're not holding the knight sword." "Yes, that's it." List's heart stirred. He quickly contacted Winnie and controlled the supreme magic to extend. Then, at the back of the armor's shoulder blades, a small pair of bone dragon wings extended out. It was basically the same as the original dragon wings of the bone dragon. Even the broken cartilage was preserved. However, it was precisely such a pair of broken dragon wings that added to the visual impact of the entire armor. It was as if a demon had climbed up from hell. It also looked like a Lich King that was desecrating the dead. Needless to say, List really felt that the style after wearing this armor was similar to the style of the Marquis Bull when he turned into a Lich. However, the Marquis Bull's blue light was emitted from his body, while Link's blue light was from the armor. "Your Highness, do you want me to use the supreme magic from the bone dragon's tail to create a dragon spear or a longsword for you?" Winnie asked. "I don't have a dragon for now, so I'll turn to a longsword for now." With that, he raised his right hand, and a ball of blue flames rose in his palm. It quickly turned into a familiar longsword, the dragon slaying ice sword. The blade was made up of sections of dragon tail bones, and the gaps were connected by blue light. Even the hilt was connected to the hand armor through the blue light. Holding the hilt, List felt the sharpness of the sword. Although it is not a real magic equipment, because the armor has some of the dragon's functions, it can mix dragon magic and dragon's fighting aura when it is used, so this bone sword is even more powerful. With the bone sword, the dragon-slaying ice sword could be temporarily eliminated. Just like that, after completing the entire armor and weapon, List spent half an hour practicing the fighting aura manual a few times and made the final changes through actual combat. It was not until the evening that he finally finished fixing the shape of the armor. The birth of this armor means that the elemental dragon's new skills have been developed. In order to distinguish them, the forms of the elemental dragon and the bone dragon need to be redefined. The original form is called the true form, the magic form is called the totem form, and the armor form is called the armor form. The armor formed by the dragon is called the dragon armor, the long sword formed by the dragon is called the dragon sword, and the dragon spear formed by the dragon is called the dragon spear. But I can add names like bone dragon armor, fire dragon sword, and ice dragon spear to distinguish them. Right? As List summarized the totem forms, he suddenly thought of a problem and secretly communicated with Winnie in his mind. "When I wear the bone dragon armor and ride on other dragons, remember to put away the bone dragon armor at my butt. Don't obstruct my mind connection with the dragon." He understood, Your Highness. Be serious. Remember to be smart and put it away when I sit down. When I get up and leave the Dragon Fong platform, you must put it back immediately, understand? List ordered sternly. Winnie did not dare to disobey. Understood. During the banquet, the noble knight and officials of Reed City had already familiarized themselves with List's new appearance. The bone dragon had turned into the totem form, and on the left half of his face was a glowing blue pattern of a skull and a dragon head. His followers already knew that the great lord they followed had obtained another powerful bone dragon. Now, it seemed that the bone dragon could merge into the dragon knight's body, just like the fire dragon Leo. However, the bone dragon could only merge into the face. How inconceivable! Many of List's followers clicked their tongues in amazement as they looked at the exceptionally coquettish List. But perhaps because they had received too much stimulation, they quickly became numb and continued to eat and drink. After all, his lordship was publicly acknowledged as the embodiment of the knight's glory in the secular world. After the meal, List did not immediately let Winnie return to her true dragon form to rest. Instead, he had Winnie turn into her armor form and sit there in a daze. The daze was just a cover. In fact, he was calling for a smoke mission. He also wanted to know if Winnie could see the smoke that represented the power of destiny when he and Winnie maintained this half-dragon mount state. As it turned out, Winnie could not see it. The smoke formed serpentines that only List could see. Chapter 9:31. Using Virginia Truth to perfectly control the Bone Dragon. The Bone Dragon gained a new life and became a special soul elemental dragon, Bone Dragon Winnie. The smoke mission was naturally completed, and the reward was a jewel crown. However, List was a little curious about what this jewel crown was and where it would come from. He felt that there should be no need to snatch it, unlike Crystal Helen, which was obtained by starting a war. Crystal Helen was placed in Firewood Castle, directly upgrading List's study by a level. This beautiful crystal statue, half the height of a person, was a special magic equipment. It could sort out the wandering magic in the castle, making people feel relaxed and happy. Ordinary people bathed in its halo would be free of diseases and disasters, while knight and wizard could enjoy the convenience of training. List liked to read books and absorb knowledge under Crystal Helen's halo. Of course, Crystal Helen's halo was enough to cover the entire Firewood Castle, and all the servants in the castle could benefit from this statue. The old butler Carter, who had always been in charge of Thorn Castle, was transferred by List to Firewood Castle as a butler after he fell ill, receiving treatment from the statue. Thorn Castle was managed by his former valet, Thomas. Familiar servants such as Chef Mrs. Abby, headmaid Little Lily, head manservant Tom, and so on were also transferred to Firewood Castle. It could be said that the relatively simple Firewood Castle had become his main residence, and he would only occasionally return to Thorn Castle to stay for a day. I wonder where I will get the jewel crown. Could it be that the Sapphire Grand Duke learned of the announcement of the three kingdoms recognizing the Fire Kingdom? So he specially made such a crown to congratulate me on becoming king? List thought, but he hoped that was not the case. After all, a crown was also a hat. It was not good for others to give him a hat. If he dares to give me a jewel crown, I will definitely give him a light emerald hat. He did not dwell on the jewel crown for too long, and soon turned his attention to the new smoke mission. Although a Chi can control the invisible dragon bard, when the invisible dragon leaves, she will not have a suitable mount to ride on. It is said that there are traces of unicorns in the Pegasus Forest of the Steel Ridge Kingdom. Unicorns representing purity might be suitable for a Chi. Why not go take a look? Reward: Pegasus Herd. Unicorns, the Pegasus Forest. This means that they want me to look for unicorns. List frowned in thought. But I don't seem to be very concerned about unicorns recently. Why would the smoke mission issue such a mission? Or do I really want to catch unicorns and see these creatures that only pure girls can see? He had always thought that unicorn was just a type of super dragon, just like how the fire dragon bird was called a phoenix, which was an exaggeration. However, since the smoke mission had been issued, he could only take the time to go to the Pegasus Forest to find the Pegasus herd and unicorns. At this moment, Winnie's thoughts were transmitted from the skull and dragon head pattern on his face. Your Highness, it's late. Do you need me to continue accompanying you? Cough, cough. List almost choked on a mouthful of air. He could sense the strange emotions in Winnie's thoughts. Ever since his and Winnie's souls carried out a Dragon Rider resonance, that comfortable feeling made Winnie infatuated. Just like the happy cooperation between the Dragon Knight and the dragon, Winnie also experienced the joy of riding and being ridden. However, although Winnie had replaced the Bone Dragon's soul, she was originally a female human. Being overly indulged in the pleasure of resonance always gave List a strange illusion. So he could not indulge her. No need. Show your true form and rest outside. I will prepare a dragon nest for you as soon as possible so that you can have a comfortable living environment. When we go out to battle, we will continue to cooperate. Of course, if I am busy, you can also train with Emily. Emily? She is one of my followers. She is only 14 years old this year, but she is very talented. She is already a Sword Saint Sky Knight, and soon she will become the first female Dragon Knight in the legendary continent. List said seriously. I hope you can help her familiarize herself with dragon riding. Such a talented girl. Please rest assured, Your Highness, I will cooperate with Emily seriously. However, I still hope to fight with Your Highness and see the strange and dazzling scenery of this world. Don't worry, you and I have enough time to fight side by side. Soon, Winnie transformed into a huge bone dragon and found a place outside to lie down. List returned to his room. Through the window, he could see the bone dragon's body emitting a blue light that seemed to be rhythmically breathing. His thoughts were already flying. With Winnie's current state, it is not suitable for the bone dragon to be a dragon rider prototype or trainer, unless it is a female dragon knight. He directly ignored the fact that he was also a male. Even if I let Emily train with her, it will still feel weird. Forget it, maybe I'm thinking too much. There was not much difference between riding a bone dragon and riding other dragons. The only difference was that ordinary dragons did not have gender, but the bone dragon's soul was that of a female. From now on, Bone Dragon Winnie will be my armor and weapon in battle. As a man, his selfish possessiveness made him quickly decide on Bone Dragon Winnie's fate. Of course, Virginia Truth was saved by List, and the Bone Dragon was also his personal property. The Bone Dragon Winnie that was formed from the combination belonged to List, and he had the right to decide how to treat it. Nightfall. List and Chi discussed for a long time, recording down all the information about the Bone Dragon during the day in preparation for future research on the soul. Before he slept, he confirmed with Chi the time to go to the Pegasus Forest, 10th of July. The journey to the Steel Ridge Kingdom was long, and they would have to search the Pegasus Forest. The journey might take 10 days to half a month. Therefore, he had to arrange the construction of the territory first. Also, List had to coordinate with the dragon's training. He first went to the volcano of Doomsday and negotiated with Little Fire Dragon Leo. He used 20 vials of red dragon water to exchange for a few big cans of Fire Dragon Super Magic. These Fire Dragon Super Magic would be used to build glass workshops and brick factories. He planned to build glass workshops and brick factories in Fire City, Reed City, Jade City, Dragon Valley City, and Estuary City, respectively. These workshops would provide glass, bricks, and cement for the construction of the cities. At the same time, they would provide materials for the construction of roads in the cities. Then, he sent 10 vials of red dragon water to the mountain copper dragon Marta to improve their relationship. He also made a contract with the recently recruited elves from the Holy Tribe. There were 2 elves, a coffee elf, and a wood elf, which was a pleasant surprise. Then he sent 10 vials of red dragon water to the light emerald dragon Ethan. He trained with Ethan for a while to deepen the first-generation dragon knight's spiritual imprint that he left in its mind. The imprint was already very clear. It would take another 2 months for the imprint to be completely completed. At that time, it would be time to introduce Ethan and Emily. Then, he sent 10 vials of red dragon water to the gray iron dragon Aon. Aon had been living on Black Horse Island, helping the P-Elf Ike evolve. He also provided deterrence and support the Soul Fortress and the Heart Island Magic Gate. One after another, 200 vials of red dragon water were used up by a quarter. This consumption is a bit fast. Bard and Winnie also need red dragon water. It seems that I have to find a chance to communicate with the Red White Rose family and ask them to send more red dragon water as gifts. Liz could not help but miss Mashu Red White Rose. You're tuning in to the Eternal Immortal Ballad YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.